Happy Monday, everybody. Yes, a very good morning to you, Newsroom team. Elvis, Evan, and Kendall will be with you until midday today, bringing you all the latest news from all around. Of course, today, well, there's a big story, and our focus is on EFF leader Julius Malema, who's set to appear before the Bloemfontein Magistrates Court following calls he made at the party's conference to occupy land in 2014. Now, Elvis, this incitement is the charge that he's facing.
Now, it's not the first time, remember? Last week he was in court in Newcastle. Today he's in Bloemfontein at the Magistrates Court there. We're asking you the question. Is there any merit in Julius Malema's continued calls for the land to be taken back? We'd like to find out from you on the Twitter handle as well as on the Facebook. What do you make of that call? Should we just take back the land, occupy the land? That's the question.
Interesting story. Great question. Interesting story, though. Julius Malema, well, he's been involved with the law this morning as well. There have been some issues around speeding and the like. We'll get more detail for you. Apparently on his way to court, he was caught for speeding and drove away. So there was even an arrest warrant issued, apparently. But we'll get more detail from that and we'll put it up as soon as we've got it. So, interesting one. But Kendall, another man caught all the headlines after a very busy sporting weekend.
Yeah, something we're looking forward to. We actually got it, but Shakes Mashaba, the coach of Bafana, ended up being the bigger story than Bafana's win over Senegal. He was caught in the crosshairs of all media, transfixed on what he had to say. A massive rant that he had about Danny Jordan, and that's why we've got this clip to play for you, which is part of our play.
It's a favor every time you're talking nonsense about it. I'm going to talk before I talk about the victory. This is my second life. These people have already buried me, you know that. These people have already buried me.
But you see,
it talks about he's gone and forgotten. And you want me to talk to the media?
Well, that's exactly why we've got our poll being exactly that.
These people have already buried me. That's the outstanding comment from that. But we've asked you, is it even legal? But we asked the question, should Bafana coach Shakes Mashaba be fired for insulting Danny Jordan? That's what's come out after what was a fantastic win, we have to say, for Bafana. Notwithstanding that dodgy penalty. But after 223 votes, Shakes has got a lot of support.
Yeah, 75% are saying no, you can't fire him based on what happened there. And 26% are saying yes.
Should Bafana coach Shakes Mashaba be fired for insulting Danny Jordan? That's not even a legal process. That shouldn't be the case. Busy Monday morning, though. Let's get straight into the morning's news with Elvis Presley.
Economic Freedom Fighters leader Julius Malema is expected to appear before the Bloemfontein Magistrates Court for charges of incitement to commit trespassing. State Security Minister David Mahlobo says he is considering legal action following allegations that he is linked to an illegal horn trafficker. And the University of Pretoria is expected to start with exams this morning, despite calls by the Fees Must Fall movement for exams to be boycotted. Now, those are all your headlines, but before we get to the news, let's find out from Kendall Makamate what's happening on the sports front. Very good morning. It was a busy weekend, wasn't it?
You know what? It's one of those weekends that we had been looking forward to all through Friday. It came and went, and lots came out of it. And that's exactly why it is. This morning, this is what we've got to say to you.
Oh, it's out. That is unlucky.
The Proteas are still plugging away at the shell-shocked Australian batting lineup on day 3 of the second test at Hobart.
I'm going to talk before I talk about the victory. This is my second life. These people have already buried me, you know that.
And Bafana coach Shakes Mashaba suspended by SAFA after an angry rant on camera in his post-match interview.
A little chip shot, Noran has left himself. And laid a club face wide open, cut across the ball, try and put as much spin as possible. Unbelievable.
Swede Alex Noren wins the Nedbank Golf Challenge with a brilliant final round of 63 for a 6-shot victory on 14 under par 2.
Well, it's huge. I've tried to get in this event for about my whole career, and finally I did by a little bit bigger field this week, and to win it feels amazing.
Fantastic result out there, and we'll be back with more details about 10:40 or so. But for now, it is back to Elvis. Who's got the news.
Thank you, Kendall. Top story this morning. The Economic Freedom Fighters leader Julius Malema is set to appear before the Bloemfontein Magistrates Court this morning. Now, he faced charges of incitement to commit trespassing. This follows calls that he made at the party's inaugural conference in 2014 to occupy land. This will be the second time that Malema appears in court on a related charge. Last week he appeared at the Newcastle Magistrates Court, and that case was postponed to the 7th of December. He has applied to the High Court that the Rioters Assembly Act of 1956, which was used to charge him, be declared unconstitutional.
Be part of the occupation of land everywhere else in South Africa, and those who get into trouble with the law, the EFF must intervene.
2 years since that statement, Julius Malema is being hauled into court. The complainant is AfriForum, which welcomed the decision to prosecute. But this could be short-lived. That's if Malema successfully argues his case in the High Court that the Rioters Assemblies Act of 1956, which was assented to prevent tensions between European and non-European citizens, is invalid and irrelevant post-apartheid. That High Court application is likely to be heard next year. But Malema is confident the court will rule in his favor, so much so that he has remained defiant.
It will be irresponsible of me to say continue waiting. That's why I say occupy the land, because they failed to give you the land. If it means going to prison for telling you to take the land, so be it. I am not scared of prison because of the land question.
That statement was made just after he appeared before the Newcastle Magistrates Court last week. And similar remarks are expected when he addresses EFF supporters who will march outside the Bloemfontein Magistrates Court. His lawyers will also apply for postponement pending the High Court ruling on the constitutionality of the Rioters Assemblies Act. Aldrin St. Pierre, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Now, reporter Aldrin St. Pierre is on the scene. As soon as we get hold of him, he'll give us an update as to what is transpiring there. So you must let us know what's on your mind in relation to this. But before we go any further, let's find out more from Eben Janssen. He's here with SABC News digital producer Siyabonga Africa.
Yeah, it's been a sensational kind of morning, sensational developments around the story in Bloemfontein. Now, Siyabonga is with me. Siyabonga, it's been, well, a warrant issued for Julius Malema's arrest for speeding. There's a lot of confusion. We'll have a look at what's happening on social media now, but just give us a quick overview. What happened there this morning?
Well, so this morning, Julius Malema was on his way to Bloemfontein to appear in court for contravening the Rioters Assemblies Act. On his way down, he was actually being driven down, so we need to clarify that. He was being driven down. There was a driver, and they clocked over 180 kilometers an hour in a 120 zone. And they evaded arrest, and thus a manhunt was underway to find him. And once they were apprehended, the driver was then arrested, and Julius Malema was allowed to carry on to go to court. So we need to clarify that it was his driver that was the one who was being looked for, not necessarily Julius Malema.
So a storm in a teacup, really, as we do, as things happen now on social media.
Yeah.
Lots of traffic on social media. Let's have a look quickly, Siyabonga, and just kind of set the scene with what's happening here. Tapelo says, laugh out loud, traffic police spokesperson nearly said, unfortunately, Malema was not arrested. Unfortunately, cut. Yeah, that's where we live now. This is from Aldrin, of course. He clears it up here. He said, Malema's driver has been arrested. Malema had to drive himself to Bloem Court, where he will appear, of course, in this case of incitement.
Yeah, definitely. We need to be careful about what's on social media. A lot of misinformation, can go on out there. And I think a lot of people, if you looked at the tweets, they were like asking the question, who was the one being arrested?
Yeah, this one, D says, they thought Malema was driving. Well, he was driving afterwards. He'll be appearing in court there. We'll try and get an update from Aldrin St. Pierre shortly. So Malema was arrested last night, but there was a manhunt for him this morning. Chasing the scoop often leads to disinformation. Yes, he was not arrested last night. And there wasn't really a manhunt launched for Julius Malema. Deputy Gupta says, Malema, so the next time your taxi driver, Uber driver is caught speeding, you'll also be arrested. Happy Monday, fellas. That's That's the kind of chatter that you have now, and of course this is the scene in Bloemfontein this morning, as you can expect. Lots of Malema supporters expected there. Sort of buoyant mood there in Bloemfontein. Would that be accurate?
Definitely. You know, the EFF definitely comes out in the droves, and they're very energetic. And someone like Julius Malema knows how to get the crowd riled up. So you know, they really are waiting to go to bat for him today.
Siyabonga, thank you very much for being with us. Of course, he's a digital media specialist here with sabc.co.za/news if you want to get all of our stuff. Of course, we're asking you the question today with regards to what's going on in the court, not on the highways in the Free State this morning. What's happening in the courts? Of course, that's the question. So, is there any merit in Julius Malema's continued calls to take back the land? Yes, it's an emotive issue here in South Africa, something that everyone has a view on. Send us your view at SABC Newsroom, or even go onto our Facebook page and you can leave us some thoughts over there. But let's go back to Elvis for more.
State Security Minister David Mashlobo says that he's considering suing for defamation following allegations that he's linked to an illegal rhino horn trafficker. The allegations were made in a documentary aired by Al Jazeera television network. Minister Mashlobo spoke to SABC News earlier about the alleged relationship, saying that he was shocked to learn that the man whose spa he has been going to is connected to criminal activity.
House. One, I never even knew his name, who he is. He's a fellow that I normally see when I get into the spa treatment. I don't even bother who's providing the service, whether this person is in today or not there today. I'm a very discreet person. I don't go to people's houses. If I do visit your house, Leah, you are very fortunate. It means I have a lot of confidence in you. I trust you. I don't go to strangers. Yeah. In my house, I've never received him or his family members. And more important, we should note that because the man loves pictures, why is he not actually demonstrating pictures where the minister is in his house? Because the only picture that the pictures he shows is only the picture where the minister is in his spa treatment. Because of the way he loves taking pictures with politicians, business people of the province, he will have shown one. Even when he will have been in my own house, he will have asked to take pictures, and which is ordinary for politicians and celebrities, to be able to be asked pictures. You will not say, no, politely decline, because you don't actually even ask whether you are a criminal or you are not a criminal. But if people, they do take pictures with public officials, or they drop their names, does it actually prove a connection? Does it prove a friendship? Yeah. Does it actually say we are actually conversant with other activities they do? I don't think that's how the nation should look at issues.
Yeah. Minister, in terms of, I mean, your portfolio is state security. Should you not know that that kind of place is a place that is involved in underhanded business? Is it not your job to know that these are not the type of places that you should frequent and that there is possible problems happening there?
Well, there would always be divided views, Leanne, to say, should you know, should you not know? But remember, my job is to apply the law. I can't that when I'm a minister for state security, I go to any particular place or I go even to any kind of a retail shop and then make an assumption that this retail shop, they are doing illegal activities unless there's an intelligence that has been gathered and gathered in a lawful manner. And I can't be in a position, therefore, to actually abuse the authority or the power that are vested in me by the president to start to profile people. Why will I actually have a stereotype to think Chinese are criminals? There are Chinese who are South Africans that are even defined by our own laws. Remember when they were actually going to court around whether they should be taken as part of historically disadvantaged individuals. Our court has actually ruled. I don't have stereotypes about people, that this is a foreigner, then I must start to profile them. This person is from this country. If you are from this particular country, then I generalize to say, what should be your conduct? I take people's conduct on the basis of my interaction, unless otherwise informed by the proper kind of information at my disposal. That's why I'm shocked that this man is doing illegal activities. The responsible way to do was to quickly alert the law enforcement agencies. They've been very cooperative. That's why the following steps in my statements have been indicated that I'm doing.
Now, as you know, the EFF Commander-in-Chief, Julius Malema, is in Bloemfontein today at the Magistrates Court there. Let's now go live to our reporter there, Aldrin Sampier, who is at the Bloemfontein Magistrates Court. A very good morning to you, Aldrin. Can you paint us a picture of what is currently happening there?
Well, I'll tell you what, at this moment we have EFF members who have come out in front of the Magistrates Court, of course, to come and support Julius Malema. Last night as well, they held a night vigil ahead of his court appearance today. But of course, this morning we woke up to news that he was allegedly arrested after confirmation from various sources as well as the police. It then turned out that he was not arrested, but his car was spotted allegedly speeding on the N1, and then police gave a chase. When they gave a chase, eventually the car stopped and they arrested his driver. Right now I'm going to ask the Deputy President of the EFF to come and join me, Floyd Chivambu. Floyd, a very good morning to you. Last week when Julius Malema was set to appear at the Newcastle Magistrates Court, which is quite ironic, is that he had a puncture, and this time there's another car issue that's involved. It is an issue of speeding, but we know for certain that he will be in court this morning. Just tell us what happened this morning.
Now look, one first to dismiss the news report that is going around that the Commander-in-Chief is arrested. The Commander-in-Chief of the EFF is not arrested. He is on his way to court. He's actually here in Bloemfontein. Will be appearing in court now. There was people who were driving him who were stopped for speed, and that is an issue that they are handling separately. He's not driving his own car, so there's no way that he could have been arrested. So we want to dismiss with contempt the news reports that the Commander-in-Chief is arrested, because he's not arrested. He will not be arrested for speed because he respects the rules of the road like all South African citizens who respect the rules of the road. So he's going to be appearing in court today. So that report must be dismissed, and then we move forward with what we are here for today. That is what we're dealing with.
I don't know if you'd be able to confirm the charges that the driver or the person who's been arrested are facing.
We're unable to confirm that, but I think it's apparent that it could have been an issue of speed and all those things there, but we're unable to confirm what the charges could be. But that is what it is. The Commander-in-Chief is here. He's not arrested. He was not even charged for any driving, because he was not driving any car, at least today we know, as a matter of fact. So that is a reality, yeah.
Let's move to today's court appearance. Why is the EFF here? Yes, last week as well in Newcastle, EFF members came out to support Julius Malema this week as well. And last night there was a night vigil in support of this court appearance. And actually the Secretary General of the EFF, who was making a speech at this night vigil, said that this is not the EFF president, not the CIC who's on trial, but it is the 7 cardinal pillars of the EFF.
Of course, we're here to attend a political trial against the political program of the economic freedom fighters. The reason why the Commander-in-Chief is being charged is because he was articulating the policy positions of the EFF that we want to take land without compensation. We took a resolution in our First National People's Assembly that our people must be encouraged to occupy unoccupied land. If they are staying in squeezed up areas, they are staying like pigs all over our communities, they must identify unoccupied land and occupy it, because the Freedom Charter says that we shall occupy the land, but also our 7 cardinal pillars, that is our political program, gives us a political mandate to occupy land. So he was basically articulating a policy position. And if you look into the records of why he's being charged, particularly for this case here in Bloemfontein, he's charged for his closing address, summarizing the resolutions of our National People's Assembly, which is the highest decision-making body. He was basically summarizing what conference has said. So if there is anyone who should be facing trial, it's the entire membership of the EFF, because it's us who took that resolution. That is why we are fully behind him, who come to say that there is nothing wrong with what he did. The land program is an important program, and we're unapologetic about it as the EFF. We're never going to retreat in terms of our commitment to make sure that land is given to its rightful owners, which is the black and African majority here in South Africa. And that is a program that we are here about.
In that closing remark, actually, and this is something that the NPA also points out in the indictment, is that Julius Malema made the remarks to go and occupy land, and he also went further to say that the EFF will establish a trust for those who are then arrested to be bailed out. The EFF must intervene. So it seems as though that he had some sort of comprehension that what he is doing would be a crime, whether invading land is a crime.
Now, look, we had said from the National People's Assembly that in instances where the occupation of land is criminalized by the establishment, by the state, we are going to provide lawyers to defend those who are going to occupy land. Ordinary South Africans are going to defend them. And as a matter of fact, there is a lot of land occupation program that happened here in the Free State, in Johannesburg, in KwaZulu-Natal, in Mpumalanga, which got to be successful. They are successful communities that are properly organized because of the land occupation program. And we're not apologetic about it. We cannot wait for the state, which has been negligent in terms of land redistribution, to give land to our people. We have taken up a program to say that people must allocate land to themselves because this is their land. They rightfully belong here in South Africa, and then they must take up a political program to take land and have proper human settlement and residential areas. And that is what our people have been doing, and we support that fully. We are not apologetic about it because it's our political program.
Let's speak about phase 2 of this case, and that is the challenging the constitutionality of the Riotous Assemblies Act, which is one of the laws used to charge Julius Malema in the two cases, the one in Newcastle and the one here in Bloemfontein. Why is the EFF feeling that this law has no place in South Africa post-apartheid?
Now, look, the current ANC government has went to take up an old apartheid racist legislation to charge the Commander-in-Chief of the EFF, which is the Righteous Assemblies Act of 1956. And that act was passed in 1956 as an attempt to suppress the demands and the commitments of the Freedom Charter. It was an act that was passed to basically protect what it says are Europeans against non-Europeans, the hostilities that they were imagining existed then. So you can realize that this is a purely racist legislation that was enacted to suppress political activity of those who were leading the struggles then, the Nelson Mandelas, the Robert Sobukwes, Walter Sisulu, and all of them. And the current government is utilizing that old legislation to now achieve its own political programs. And we say that decidedly, that legislation is not in line with our constitution because there is no categorization in South Africa post-1994 of Europeans and non-Europeans. There's no categorization of saying that there must be a constitutional protection of one race against the other. So decidedly, we know that when we take up this case to the High Court to challenge its constitutionality, we're going to emerge victorious. That piece of legislation is illegal. It is not going to stand any constitutional scrutiny in terms of what we're going to subject it to later on.
A lot of legal experts, just quickly, a lot of legal experts that we've spoken to actually say that the EFF has a case, Julius Malema has a case, that this law is not constitutional post-apartheid. And my question then is, do you think that from the South African Law Reform Commission that there could have been oversight, that they missed this one?
No, look, I don't think it's only the South African Law Commission that has had oversight on this issue. It's mostly Parliament. So the first 4 democratic parliaments under the leadership of the ANC has failed dismally to repeal all apartheid legislations. That is why, concurrent to this particular process, we went to Parliament, to the relevant committees, to the Rules Committee, to the committee that deals with legislation in Parliament, to demand that all legislations that were passed prior to 1994 must be brought before us so that we repeal all of them, because that is a function that could have been at least fulfilled by the first and the second democratic parliaments. It's 22 years now since the attainment of political freedom, but we're still sitting with archaic and old apartheid legislation that defined people according to race and according to what the Queen that time would say should happen in South Africa. So it looks like we even the political freedom which we thought has been attained has not fully been attained, because the now liberated South Africa is utilizing the laws of the oppressor to govern society. That is extremely irresponsible. It's negligence of the political power that was given to the African National Congress. That is why part of what should happen after this is to take the political power from the ANC, because they've been unable to utilize it effectively to liberate our people in a meaningful and permanent way.
Well, thank you so much. There you have it, the Deputy President of the EFF indicating what their stance is with regards to the Rioters Assemblies Act of 1956. Julius Malema has made the application last week to have that law repealed. He says that it is unconstitutional, and that court case is expected to be heard sometime next year. Today we are expecting a quick application similar to the one that we saw last week in Newcastle. It's back to you in studio.
Thank you, Aldrin Sapir. That's our reporter there, joining us live from the Bloemfontein Magistrates Court. We'll keep you updated on the proceedings there. Now, remember, we're asking you the question, of course, and that relates to this particular case. Is there any merit in Julius Malema's continued calls to take back the land? That's the question. Let us know on the Twitter handle at SABC Newsroom, as well as on the Facebook page. Right now, to start our discussion on the latest floods we had here in Gauteng, let's go over to Eben.
Yeah, very good morning to you. Elvis, the sad thing is well, there's a promise of more thunderstorms and more flooding this coming week. Concerns about the ability of the city of Johannesburg's infrastructure to handle more extreme weather. Is being raised right now. Johannesburg has already experienced significant changes in rainfall patterns with shorter, much more intense storm events. These patterns carry the risk of flood damage to infrastructure and also the environment. Now, to talk to this a little bit, I'm joined in studio now by Councillor Michael Soon, of course, Joburg City MMC for Public Safety. A very good morning to you, Councillor. Thank you for being here.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
It was such a shock, I think, to people in Johannesburg last week. Of course, when we are shocked, we normally have an emotional response. And what came out of last week, the city was bashed immediately. Oh, the floods were because the infrastructure is not being serviced or maintained properly. Now that the dust has settled a little bit and you've had a look, what's your view?
Eben, I do not doubt that there are some aging infrastructures within the city. However, I prefer to understand that, with the kind of rainfall that we had, no infrastructure could ever handle that. I was on the scene of that night on the N3, the amount of water gushing down. It was very difficult for any infrastructure to handle.
I wanted to ask you, these pictures that we see, this is the highway, this is the N3 out in Linksfield, and it looked like the aftermath of a tsunami, actually. Some of the damage here, you see a car just washed away as if it's nothing. Were you shocked with these kind of pictures of the aftermath that you then saw?
Even I was not only shocked, I was devastated to see the amount of damage this natural disaster could cause. I spoke to some of the people on the scene and some of the gentlemen and ladies that were still in a state of shock, and I actually saw with my own eyes bodies being carried up, so it's extremely devastating.
And of course, when you look at this, the first thing now in the cold light of day is what's the damage? Where is the damage at right now? If you can look at a ballpark number, if one can be so cold.
Yes, I hate to go into the stats because we're really reducing people's loss of homes and lives into numbers, but we have done the count. We've counted, 13,000, I beg your pardon, 1,355 people affected, and about 583 homes across 14 areas. So it's not looking good, but we are doing our best to assist those affected.
Now, of course, the outlook for the rest of the week, there are more big thunderstorms, much like this, on the way to the entire Gauteng area. How do you prepare for this week now?
We've learnt our lessons, but we are prepared. As soon as the incident started to happen, our Disaster Management Center was activated, the DMC, and together with that, we have a joint operations center, bringing other departments and entities and levels of government onto board. And I must just say that we are very grateful for the private sector, a lot of the institutions, such as the Gift of the Givers. I'm naming a few, there are so many. ShopRite checkers coming to assist us, a lot of communities bringing blankets, so we're really grateful.
Now, of course, the disaster management plan is very much under focus now.
Yes.
Is this a continued work in progress now, and you have to react almost daily to changing conditions?
Yes, we are mindful of the possible rainfall again. It's also because that we anticipated a drought so much that all of a sudden there's so much rain. But disaster management is an ongoing process. We are very alert. Our executive mayor, Herman Mashaba, has made sure that I take care of this to the highest level together with my colleagues within the department. So we're all eyes and ears on the possible future damages that the rain could cause.
Now, of course, it caused a lot of consternation with the people in Johannesburg, as you can imagine. If you had to sit down now and kind of have an open session with the residents, what kind of advice would you be giving people today, and especially running into this week with more warnings underway?
Even we find a lot of our motorists, they perhaps are not used to these conditions. So when they see there's water coming through, perhaps they will brave the waters and drive through shallow waters. But that's when the flash floods happen. So we do urge the motorists to be please careful out there. When they see water, try to avoid the road. A lot of the traffic lights would go out of order during these times, so please, take care on the roads. And we also want to urge our residents, staying near flash flood lines to please, heed our calls to vacate the area when we make that call. And please don't go back, because after, floods like these, there are bound to be some diseases lying around. So we really want to urge our residents to please take extra care.
And the residents, they're quite on side. They're quite willing to help here in Joburg. We can have quite a tough crowd here in Johannesburg at times.
True, but I think that's what makes Johannesburg so bright. We've got a lot of willing residents. Our DMC Disaster Management Center is situated at the Centum Fire Station. Throughout the week, we've seen people bringing blankets, foods, anything that would assist the affected communities. So I'm really, really proud on the one hand. I'm really, really touched on the other.
Thank you very much for joining us. That is Councillor Michael Sweeney, he's the Joburg City MMC for Public Safety. Yes, the outlook for the rest of the week, unfortunately, is not very good. I'll speak to Tsietse a little bit later about what that outlook exactly looks like, which are the bad days. But, of course, you can get in contact with the city if you want to know where those areas at risk will be and what you should be doing with regards to, potential or more potential flooding in the city later this week. Thank you, Councillor, for coming in once again today.
Thank you.
Now, let's go on to social media now. It's Monday morning. Lots been happening over the weekend. The hashtag Mahlobo. Of course, we saw the response of the Minister. Now, the State Security Minister denies any links to rhino poachers. According to a documentary that was aired on the Doha-based television network Al Jazeera, Mahlobo has close ties to a Chinese national living in South Africa who is alleged to be a rhino horn trafficker and part of a major organized crime syndicate. Juan Jianguang has bragged about bribing South African justice and immigration officials in this documentary. Another hashtag to watch out for this morning, of course, is Malema. Police have now stopped that manhunt for Julius Malema, who, his driver this morning evaded traffic officials after speeding on the N1 and the R30 in and around the city of Bloemfontein. Of course, Julius Malema is in court, in the magistrate's court there in the Free State capital this morning. We can now confirm that the driver has been arrested and will be charged. On the international front, the hashtag New Zealand, of course, our thoughts today with New Zealand after a powerful magnitude 7.8 earthquake struck the country's South Island, killing at least two people there. Tsunami warnings have been issued all along the coast, as you can see there. The good news is Jackie Chan was a recipient of an honorary Oscar at last night's Governor's Awards in Los Angeles. The martial arts icon, who notably starred in the Rush Hour franchise between 1998 and 2007, has never been nominated for an Academy Award during his 54-year career, despite making more than 200 movies. Arnold Schwarzenegger tweeted this picture saying congrats to my friend Jackie Chan on this fantastic honor. There he says, after 200 movies, you certainly deserve this Oscar. You always inspire. Fantastic. Of course, our poll that we're running today is around Bafana head coach Sheikh Mashaba, who's been suspended now with immediate effect by the South African Football Association. That's our poll right now. Now, we've got more than 300 votes up there. A lot of support for Sheikh Mashaba on Twitter right now. Some of the tweets is Safa getting rid of Sheikh Mashaba. Why, Les Monet, is what we should ask. I am Sandy, so Safa recalls Sheikh Mashaba for his comments about Jordan and suspend him. Why not for his performances then? Well, this is how South African football works. Moses says, good morning, Sheikh Mashaba. They said you are building the national team until 2018. Now they are impatient. He said he was dead. He said he was buried already in the clip that you saw there a little bit earlier. This one, I'm surprised that Sheikh Mashaba got suspended. I'm shocked it happened after Bafana scooped 3 points against a relentless Senegal team. Yes, oh, that's just how the dice rolls sometimes. Let's now take a quick look at our picture of the day. This one comes from Lilac Sunday, and, well, interesting one. An American flag in tatters with a caption that says, does anyone seriously think rural voters are looking at these anti-Trump protesters and regretting their votes? Fair question. Nobody admits they voted for Donald Trump. Now, a comment of the day. This one comes from Master Poncho. And it says, getting rid of Sheikh Mashaba is not the solution, Safa. Oh, Safa is a mess, actually. That's our tweet of the day. Can you get fired for arguing with your boss? Or is it your job to argue with your boss? I think that's one of the questions. You can send us a tweet on today as well. Let's take a quick look at what is in the court here. Of course, in Bloemfontein, all eyes on Julius Malema. He's to appear in the magistrate's court there in connection with violating the Riotous Assemblies Act. He's facing charges of inciting people to break the law by encouraging them to occupy vacant land. That's our question of the day. In Port Elizabeth, the Panayotto murder trial is continuing in the High Court there. The alleged middleman and state witness in the murder and abduction of Jade Panayotto, Lutando Sioni, will testify today, so it's a big day there. Also in PE, 2 men, they're expected to appear in court for allegedly firing gunshots into the air at the popular King's Beach. Yes, while they were not intoxicated, apparently they were drunk. We'll keep you updated on those stories as they develop in the courts today. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, we'll look at the BRICS Bank and how it will benefit Africans and Africa in the short term.
Information-hungry viewers stay with SABC News, as issues on the West are different from issues on the East or here in Johannesburg. So it is not surprising that people who follow the news know that there are two things for sure: that anything can happen, and SABC News will tell you when it does. Because we keep the nation fully informed. We are SABC News.
Welcome back. You're still with Newsroom here on SABC News. Now, South Africa's Finance Minister Pravin Gordhan's recent midterm budget speech made large commitments to infrastructure spending. 300 billion rand for transport and logistics, 240 billion for energy, and 137 billion for water and sanitation. Now, governments tend to prioritize infrastructure to promote economic growth, but financing from developed nations can sometimes be a challenge and create high risk for deficit and debt. But the BRICS nations, Brazil, Russia, India, China and South Africa, have developed a new development bank that aims to promote faster growth in these regions. Now, joining me in studio is the South African Institute for International Affairs researcher, Cyril Prinsloo. Cyril, good morning to you. Thanks for joining us.
Morning.
Cyril, just give us a quick overview. Of course, I set the scene pretty much there. What is the work of the new development bank by BRICS?
Well, I think you start capturing by saying they're looking to fund infrastructure projects in developing countries, right? So they started the bank about 18 months ago, and they're specifically looking to fund sustainable infrastructure projects. So these are projects that contribute to the economic growth of these countries, but equally take into account the environmental and social aspects specific to these developing countries.
What is the BRICS Bank going to bring to the game that's different or that's not already on offer?
I think the key thing that we have to remember about the new development bank as it currently stands, its 5 members are the BRICS countries, right? So what they're saying is that they understand the developing challenges of developing countries. Yeah. Being some of the key developing countries themselves. So they say they can better respond because they're more intimately connected, intimately aware with these challenges. And I think that's one of the key advantages of the new development bank.
Now, of course, last week the world changed. The world changes, it seems, a lot these days. Donald Trump was voted in as the next 45th American president. He immediately took to the podium and said, I'm going to rebuild America. I'm going to come out and we're going to rebuild everything. How does that kind of focus and spend on infrastructure, do you think, how will that American focus, how will it reverberate in call it the BRICS world?
Look, infrastructure spending has been always used by governments in times of economic challenges to try and reinvigorate the economy, right? To pump money into the economy, to create demand, and that way to try and grow the economy again. In terms of BRICS, of course, we know 3 of the BRICS at least are facing key economic challenges. You know, China is doing relatively well, growing between 6 and 7% GDP. India, of course, the star performer in the group. So certainly they will use New Development Bank to try and fund infrastructure to reinvigorate their economy. As to the effects of a Trump presidency on the BRICS, I think, of course, we have to remember America being the biggest economy in the world. Anything that happens in the United States has an impact not only on the BRICS countries, but on almost every country globally.
What do you think BRICS, or how do you think BRICS will perform in a world where there's a perceived better relations between a guy like Trump and a Putin? Is that a massive positive for BRICS, or would that be a stretch on our part?
You know, I think it's too early to say at this moment. Trump will only move into the White House in January next year, and I think then at that point we should look at that. I think it's too soon to tell at the moment.
Now, tell us a little bit about the Global Economic Governance Africa program. They put out a recent report, and that report found out certain things about multilateral development banks, as in this case. What came out of that report?
Absolutely. I think from the outset, we looked at the New Development Bank. New Development Bank said they don't want to revolutionize infrastructure funding. The current model employed by the likes of the World Bank, the African Development Bank, has actually been fairly successful. What the New Development Bank is saying is that they want to make it more efficient. So our research looked at what are the key challenges African countries face in engaging with these traditional multilateral development banks. What we found, for example, is loan procedures. To get a loan approved can take up to sometimes 20 months. So, of course, that's one thing we identified that the New Development Bank should look to address.
Well, thank you very much for joining us today. South African Institute for International Affairs researcher Cyril Prinsloo. Thank you very much. Talking about, of course, the BRICS Bank and, of course, the impact that it will have on growth on the African continent in the months and years to come. Now, to one of the big stories of this Monday, COPE, political party COPE, the Congress of the People, they've called for an urgent investigation into allegations that State Security Minister David Mahlobo is linked to an alleged rhino horn trafficker and a member of a crime syndicate. Of course, we saw this documentary that's been doing the rounds on Al Jazeera lately. Let's take a look at some of the tweets that you guys are sending in. As you can imagine, it's a bit of a free-fall on social media this Monday morning. Sakina Kamwendo, the picture was taken before or after Mr. Mahlobo became a minister. My question to all of you is it illegal to be friends with anybody? I don't know about that. Zoic says, Mahlobo, which policeman is going to find against its employer? Why didn't he hand over the investigation to the public protector? This one from Kebi. He says, Minister Mahlobo is a famous person. People would want to take pictures with him. Nothing wrong. Even if he was friends with this person of ill repute, if that's the case, is it against the law to be friends with somebody? I don't quite know about that. Nelim Kizi says, Mr. Mahlobo can really take this matter to court and succeed. That will give us hope other than that it's bad with a big B. Yeah, that's Nelim Kizi. Keep it coming. We'd like you to tell us what's going on. Can you be arrested for being friends with somebody? That's a question we have to do. Anyhow, on our Facebook page on this Monday morning, there's a lot happening now. The Comfers Dam on the outskirts of Kimberley in the Northern Cape was once a well-known breeding spot for thousands of lesser flamingos. However, the birds have been driven away by persisting drought and the Solpaiki municipality's decision to stop pumping treated affluent water into the dam. Wow, that's an interesting one on our Facebook page. Go and have a look at it. We can also see there that at least one case of meningitis has been reported in Port Elizabeth in the Eastern Cape following the admission of an 11-year-old girl to the Dorangenza hospital. The girl was diagnosed with pneumococcal meningitis on Friday. Finally, a powerful earthquake, of course, and a series of aftershocks, as well as tsunami warnings have been issued in New Zealand earlier this morning. 2 people have died, prompting that tsunami warning that sent thousands fleeing to higher ground all down the eastern coastline of New Zealand. All of that and more on our Facebook page. You can also go to our website, sabc.co.za/news for all the latest. Now, let's take a look at the front pages from around the world right now. On this Monday morning, the South China Morning Post reports that opponents of Hong Kong independence staged a show of force yesterday. Thousands of people took to the streets around the government headquarters in one of the largest rallies of its kind in recent years. Then, in Europe, the Times reports that Theresa May is under fire from senior conservatives for refusing to use Nigel Farage to build links with Donald Trump, and the UKIP leader became the first foreign politician to meet the US president-elect. Finally, in Australia, the Daily Telegraph reports that a wall of water is surging down New Zealand's Clarence River after it burst through a dam of debris caused by the magnitude 7.8 earthquake that has now claimed 2 lives. That's where we are now. Let's go over to Elvis for more.
Yeah, we continue with our focus really on BRICS and development here on the continent as well as in our country, South Africa. Now, it's estimated that 70% of the world's population will live in cities by the year 2050. With a population of 4.5 million citizens here in Johannesburg, it's the largest and the fastest growing city in South Africa. But with the fast rate of urbanization come the pressures to accommodate more people, building roads, office blocks, housing and malls. And South Africa is currently facing several challenges within the industry, from unrealistic deadlines, which may lead to safety hazards, to a shortage of skilled labor. Now, to tell us more, joining us here in studio is the president of the South African Council for Project and Construction Management Professions, Eric Machidi. Mr. Machidi, a very good morning to you.
Good morning to you and your listeners.
First and foremost, let's just start off. You recently held a construction summit. What were some of the key indicators that came out of that particular summit?
Well, the conference was aimed at addressing the challenges facing the construction industry, more in particular those built environment management professions under the ambit of the SACP CMP, which is the council of which I am serving as the president.
Now, it seems that South Africa has several challenges within the construction industry, especially when it comes to funding of large projects. You also have corruption with tenders, apparently, and a shortage of skilled labor. What does it say about our industry? Are we in trouble there?
Well, those are the challenges that are facing the industry. Hence, our conference particularly addressed those issues, more in particular with respect to ethical behavior within the construction industry and how the private sector can come in to look into financing of infrastructure. But also key critical element towards the delivery of infrastructure being the issue of skills themselves, of which our conference had a particular focus into that as to how we can make available a continuous flow of professions to be able to address delivery of infrastructure.
What seemed to be the contributing factor in terms of skills lost within the built environment?
Well, one of the challenges is that the subscription to the skills pipeline is a challenge, starting right from attracting the right number of students to enter construction management professions. And those who happen to be successful by going through their tertiary qualifications, they also have a challenge in terms of upgrading from what we call candidates, professionals, towards being fully fledged professionals. But also we do have a large skills flight within the construction industry to other sectors of the economy.
Is it also perhaps that more matriculants are not getting a skill, rather they would go to university, and that is what we see currently happening, that you don't have those youngsters coming through the pipeline?
Well, the issue of having the well-qualified professionals within the industry is highly driven by our educational system. If we cannot be able to produce the right matriculants with the necessary maths and science, it becomes difficult to have the necessary number of qualified professionals. So the issue of matriculants is critical in terms of driving skills development within the industry.
We have a problem with unemployment in the country. We've seen a number of graduates sitting at home doing not anything. Is that because they haven't studied maths and science and that they would rather go to social studies?
Well, it is one of the challenges in the sense that the demand for our industry, it requires qualifications which are highly driven by maths and science. And if we do not have matriculants with maths and science, it makes it difficult to get them into these particular professions. However, the challenge is what is it that can be done as the industry, as the academic institutions was addressing those particular challenges, of which our conference also addressed that particular issue.
We see a number of construction work currently going on around the city, roads and malls and so forth. But what is the one division in construction that is currently key for our economic growth in the country, you think?
Well, the main issue is the ability to generate the projects, of which the public sector is also one key role player in that aspect, of which one of the focus of our council is to try and ensure that project management skills are available within the public sector as a driver of the economy.
Mr. Mashindi, thank you so much for your time and good luck with all the projects that you're currently busy with.
Thank you.
That was the President of the South African Council for Project and Construction Management Professions, Eric Manchidi. Let's now go over to Eben to find out what is happening with social media and some of the comments that's coming through on the various platforms.
Yeah, it's been a very interesting morning on social media thus far. Of course, that question, well, it resonates with quite a few people today. Is there any merit in Julius Malema's call to take back the land? That's of course, the question we put to you. Let's just see what's some of the best tweets that have come in thus far. At SABC Newsroom, of course, that's where you can interact with us. This one from Muhammad Arai. He says, Malema and his political tactics, nothing more at SABC Newsroom. Well, this one from Tsepo. He says, Julius Malema is fighting for black man's child, which is indeed a good thing. Viva EFF, viva, says Tsepo. Interesting. Who you ask for? Musa says, Julius Malema, there is merit. Just check those shacks that are built besides that river. A sobering thought there as we're bracing ourselves for another week of storms here in Johannesburg. Sapelo says, Newsroom, if the Freedom Charter says so, why not take back our land as Africans? Sapelo. Elia says, Newsroom, land can be given constructively and well thought out, I think is what she's saying. Leave out the political war talk. Straight and to the point, yes. Leave out the political war talk. Unfortunately, it seems that is just part of the discussion, that we have when we talk about land here on the, well, not here in South Africa. We're going to take a short break. We'll be back with another update at the top of the hour. Should be interesting what's happening outside the court in Bloemfontein. We also have a whole lot of other news, so join us again in a couple of minutes. See you then.
SABC News on point with news around the world. Live transmissions to keep you informed. When history unfolds, we're there.
At which Clinton and her supporters painted an optimistic portrait of America. Statues of the woman who led the march to the Union buildings in Pretoria in 1956 have been unveiled against the walls of the State Theatre in Pretoria. Sophie de Bruyn, Lillian Ngoyi, Helen Joseph and Rahima Musa led 20,000 other women to the Union buildings against the Dom Passers in 1956.
It is for the youth to take the baton that we have already handed over to them.
What has happened to South Africa? Kutheni my posters.
Stay tuned to News Today at 3 p.m. from Monday to Friday on SABC News.
Yeah, welcome back. Just gone 10 o'clock Central African time. That is, it's myself and Kendra Mahamati with you for the next hour or so here on the Newsroom show on SABC News. Been a very busy sort of sporting weekend. So Kendall will be looking at all of that. But Kendall, before we talk about the big sporting story today, yes, I just want to take our viewers back to our question of the day. Of course, lots happened in Bloemfontein. Julius Malema's driver was arrested, the like. But we ask you, is there any merit in Julius Malema's continued calls to take back the land? Of course, it's an emotive issue. A lot of people have different views on it. Let's take a look at a couple of those views before we move on and take a look at what's happening with Shakes Mashaba. Ella says, land can be given constructively and well thought. Leave out the political war talk. Elia, that's a very, very smart observation. But Kendall, war talk is part of the land discussion in South Africa, isn't it?
Yeah, it's so emotional that it actually, like, the minute you start talking about it, goes to race. You know?
Yes,
so
absolutely.
Yes, it is.
Sapelo says, if Freedom Charter says so, Freedom Charter says so, why not take back our land as Africans? It's charter, Sapelo. Freedom Charter. It's a charter.
Then we have Musa Cedric Pila. He reckons at Julius Malema and SABC Newsroom there's merit. Just check those shacks that are built besides that river at Alex.
Yeah, no, that's Joburg, my Joburg. They will always get right on top of you early. Tsepo. Julius Malema is fighting for black man's child, which is indeed a good thing, says Tsepo. Those are your tweets on our question of the day. The land issue, yes, we're all over it all the time, the land issue in South Africa, and we will do so till kingdom come, one would think. But Shakes Mashaba,
he's in the news.
He became the story, though.
Yeah. You know, we should be talking about Senegal and how Bafana beat them, but Shakes Mashaba became the focus of the news for this morning in sports, and that's exactly why.
Let's have a look what he did. That was so bad.
Every time you're talking nonsense about it. I'm going to talk before I talk about the victory. This is my second life. These people have already buried me, you know that? These people have already buried me.
But you see,
it talks about he's gone and forgotten. And you want me to talk to the media?
Yes, every time. Gone and forgotten, they buried me. Every time he talks nonsense to me. Was that in reference to Danny Odan, you think?
Well, you know what? He was pointing, gesticulating to somebody off screen. So people who'd seen the post-match had seen that it was Danny Odan. In that direction.
In that direction. Let's take a look at our poll. There's a lot of support for Shakes, though, Kendall.
Let's just remind our viewers what our poll is, exactly. Our poll is, should Bafana coach Shakes Mashaba be fired for insulting Danny Jordan? Now, that really is the question for the day. After this busy weekend of sports, we've got 27%. That's 2% more than a little earlier this morning. We say, yes, he should be fired for that rot.
Yeah, but do you get fired? Even if you, in the spur of the moment, you've just beaten one of the biggest sides on the continent, you're feeling a bit emotional, you've been treated... Surely you can question your boss or 100%. Even argue with your boss.
Sure, you can. But you know what the thing is? This has been coming for some time. The question about whether Shakes should stay or go. And people are using this as an excuse to try and have the debate.
And others are saying, well, they should have fired him for the results, not for this kind of nonsense. Instead, of course, now I've turned the results around and now we have another big story. But it's Monday morning. There's lots of big stories. Other big stories in sport, of course, including Lewis Hamilton keeping the F1 race alive. Kendall will be talking to that shortly, but Kendall, let me just have a look at our top stories in the news right now. EFF leader Julius Malema is expected to appear shortly before the Bloemfontein Magistrates Court for charges of incitement to commit trespassing. State Security Minister David Matlobo says he's considering legal action following allegations that he is linked to an illegal rhino horn trafficker. Then the University of Pretoria is expected to start with exams this morning, despite calls by the Fees Must Fall movement for exams to be boycotted altogether. Well, those are your top stories right now. Let's go over to Kendall to give us the sports roundup.
Thank you very much, Eben. Quite a lot happening in sports. Yes, it's on and off the field, but we have a live cricket match that's been a test that's been on the go out in Hobart in Australia, and that's literally what we're going to start with when we bring you the sporting news for today. This is what we've got for you in this hour.
Oh, it's out. That is unlucky.
And the Proteas are firmly in the pound seat as Bad Light stops play on day 3 of the second test in Hobart, with the host
I'm
out
going
behind
to
1
talk
for 2.
if I talk about the victory. This is my second life. These people have already buried me, you know that.
And Bafana coach Shakes Mashab is suspended by SAFA after an angry rant and on camera in his post-match interview.
Chip shot, Noran has left himself and laid a club face wide open, cut across the ball, try and put as much spin as possible on it. Unbelievable.
And Swede Alex Noren wins the Nedbank Golf Challenge with a brilliant final round of 63 for a 6-shot victory on 14 under par 2.
Well, it's huge. I've tried to get in this event for about my whole career, and finally I did by a little bit bigger field this week, and to win it feels amazing.
All this and more I've got you covered later on the Sports Bulletin about 10:40. Be sure to stick around, but for now it is back to Eben who's got the news.
Yeah, thank you, Kendall. Thank you very much. Very good morning to you. If you've just joined us, CFF leader Julius Malema is set to appear shortly before the Bloemfontein Magistrates Court. He faces charges of incitement to commit trespassing. This follows calls he made at the party's inaugural conference in 2014 to occupy land. This will be the second time Malema appears in court on a related charge. Last week, he appeared at the Newcastle Magistrates Court, and that case was postponed until the 7th of December. He's applied to the High Court that the Riotous Assemblies Act of 1956, which was used to charge him, be declared unconstitutional.
You must be part of the occupation of land everywhere else in South Africa, and those who get into trouble with the law, the EFF must intervene.
2 years since that statement, Julius Malema is being hauled into court. The complainant is AfriForum, which welcomed the decision to prosecute. But this could be short-lived. That's if Malema successfully argues his case in the High Court that the Riotous Assemblies Act of 1956, which was assented to prevent tensions between European and non-European citizens, is invalid and irrelevant post-apartheid. That High Court application is likely to be heard next year. But Malema is confident the court will rule in his favor, so much so that he has remained defiant.
It will be irresponsible of me to say continue waiting. That's why I say occupy the land, because they failed to give you the land. If it means going to prison for telling you to take the land, so be it. I am not scared of prison because of the land question.
That statement was made just after he appeared before the Newcastle Magistrates Court last week. And similar remarks are expected when he addresses EFF supporters who will march outside the Bloemfontein Magistrates Court. His lawyers will also apply for postponement pending the High Court ruling on the constitutionality of the Riotous Assemblies Act. Aldrin St. Pierre, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Well, we can't tell you that the court is in session now, but Julius Malema is, nowhere to be seen inside the court as of yet. But let's go listen to the magistrates in this case and see how matters are proceeding.
She is on warning, and if you may be released on warning.
Well, as you can see, the judge is trying to get into the work there this morning. But, of course, the headlines were, well different a little bit earlier. And our EFF Deputy President Floyd Shibambu had to come out and talk to us. He dismissed reports that Julius Malema was the one who was arrested for speeding and failing to stop at a roadblock en route to the court. Speaking to our very own Aldrin St. Pierre A little bit earlier, Shivambu said Malema respects traffic laws and he wasn't driving the car when the speeding incident occurred.
There was people who were driving him who were stopped for speed, and that is an issue that they are handling separately. He's not driving his own car, so there's no way that he could have been arrested. So we want to dismiss with contempt the news reports that the Commander-in-Chief is arrested because he's not arrested. He will not be arrested for speed because he respects the rules of the road like all South African citizens who respect the rules of the road. So he's going to be appearing in court today. So that report must be dismissed and then we move forward with what we are here for today.
Now, State Security Minister David Mahlobo says he's considering suing for defamation following allegations that he's linked to an illegal rhino horn trafficker. The allegations were made in a documentary aired on Al Jazeera television network. Minister Mahlobo spoke to the SABC a little bit earlier about the alleged relationship, saying he was shocked to learn that the man, whose spa he's been going to, is connected to criminal activity.
I've never been to the man's house. One, I never even knew his name, who he is. He's a fellow that I normally see when I get into the spa treatment. I don't even bother who's providing the service, whether this person is in today or not there today. I'm a very discreet person. I don't go to people's houses. If I do visit your house, Leah, you are very fortunate. It means I have a lot of confidence in you. I trust you. I don't go to strangers. Yeah. In my house, I've never received him or his family members. And more important, we should note that because the man loves pictures, why is he not actually demonstrating pictures where the minister is in his house? Because the only picture that the pictures he shows is only the picture where the minister is in his spa treatment. Because of the way he loves taking pictures with politicians, business people of the province, he will have shown one. Even when you will have been in my own house, he will have asked to take pictures, and which is ordinary for politicians and celebrities to be able to be asked pictures. You will not say, no, politely decline, because you don't actually even ask whether you are a criminal or you are not a criminal. But if people, they do take pictures with public officials or they drop their names, does it actually prove a connection? Does it prove a friendship? Yeah. Does it actually say we are actually conversant with other activities they do? I don't think that's how the nation should look at issues.
Yeah. Minister, in terms of, your portfolio is state security. Should you not know that that kind of place is a place that is involved in underhanded business? Is it not your job to know that these are not the type of places that you should frequent and that there is possible problems happening there?
Well, there will always be divided views, Leanne, to say, should you know, should you not know? But remember, my job is to apply the law. I can't that when I'm a minister for state security, I go to any particular place or I go even to any kind of a retail shop and then make an assumption that this retail shop, they are doing illegal activities unless there's an intelligence that has been gathered and gathered in a lawful manner. And I can't be in a position, therefore, to actually abuse the authority or the powers that are vested in me by the president to start to profile people. Why will I actually have a stereotype to think Chinese are criminals? There are Chinese who are South Africans that are even defined by our own laws. Remember when they were actually going to court around whether they should be taken as part of historically disadvantaged individuals. Our court has actually ruled. I don't have stereotypes about people, that this is a foreigner, then I must start to profile them. This person is from this country. If you are from this particular country, then I generalize to say, what should be your conduct? I take people's conduct on the basis of my interaction, unless otherwise informed by the proper kind of information at my disposal. That's why I'm shocked that this man is doing illegal activities. The responsible way to do was to quickly alert the law enforcement agencies. They've been very cooperative. That's why the following steps in my statements have been indicated that I'm doing.
We can report now that the matter before the Magistrates Court in Bloemfontein with EFF leader Julius Malema, well, it's been postponed until the 5th of June next year. Yes, of course, he's facing charges of incitement to commit trespassing. That follows calls that he made at the party's inaugural conference in 2014 to occupy land. We've also, of course, asked you our question of the day, and our question of the day talks directly to the issue of calls to take back the land. Now, is there any merit, according to you and Julius Malema's continued calls to take back the land? That's where you can contact us at SABC Newsroom, is where you can interact. So, the matter before the Magistrates Court has now been postponed until the 5th of June next year. We move on. The University of Pretoria says exams will start as scheduled from today onwards. This despite calls by the Fees Must Fall movement for exams to be boycotted altogether. The movement is demanding that exams be deferred, saying students are simply not ready.
On Friday, concerned students made the call for exams to be boycotted. Their argument, students are simply not ready for exams. They blame the online learning that the university has been offering in the lead-up to exams. The group says e-learning disadvantages poor students with no laptops.
Catch-up plan must be set up in place for contact sessions. For what the students have lost through e-learning, the university must put in place in January during the exam period a time for students to have contact sessions. Now, what are we saying if they do not answer before the 14th when we start exams? We are saying it cannot be just. And we are calling to students of the University of Pretoria to mass boycott the exam.
The university, however, is adamant that exams will go ahead.
With the university not calling, saying that they are continuing with exams, even when the students have asked for deferral of exams, for some students who feel that they are not ready because of the e-learning system that was imposed on students, it shows that the university is still adamant and stubborn and doesn't want to listen to the students.
The students say they are also considering legal action to stop the exams. The University of Pretoria says security measures are in place to prevent any possible disruptions to exams that are expected to start on Monday. Sipho Sturman, SABC News in Pretoria.
The ANC must ask itself the difficult questions if it wants to self-correct. That's what ANC Secretary General Gwede Mantashe told party structures in Mafikeng at the weekend. He says corruption, the looting of state resources and factionalism are impacting on party unity.
ANC taking stock.
How do we deal with promotion of friends and pursuit of selfish interests?
Frank talk from the ANC Secretary General. He's also warned of forces trying to weaken the party. And he should know, says Mantashe, because he's a primary target.
Today, I was conspired with Malema. Last week, I was conspiring with Jackson and Praveen. Last Sunday, I was being sought by the Hawks. And that will continue, and I say the period we're in, these things are going to continue. And the intention is very simple. Divide the leadership of the ANC.
The ANC's assessment of its Northwest structure is not flattering. Mantashe says it's been unable to deal with dissent within its ranks and should guard against self-destruction.
The biggest loss in percentage term in the local government was in the Northwest, 15% decline.
The ANC says it will use internal tools to guide its turnaround strategy and will start with rejuvenating its provincial structures. Selwa Tatai, SABC News, Mahikeng.
ANC Treasurer General Zweli Mkhize says the party may still reconcile with members who contested the August election as independents. In KwaZulu-Natal alone, over 200 independents participated in the election, the majority from the ANC. Mkhize met with ANC branches in Phoenix, north of Durban.
ANC leaders are crisscrossing the province. Their aim is to settle disputes that have brought about disunity in the organization and in some parts cost it dearly. Most problems emanated from the nomination process and drove some dissatisfied members to go at it alone, registering as independents in the August election. Now party leaders want to rectify errors and, where possible, to reconcile.
What the National Executive Committee has said, that there was a lot of tension, there was a lot of gatekeeping, there was a lot of factionalism. We need to go and resolve that. In some instances, it might actually mean that the ANC leadership will have to consider all those factors to decide on what is the fate of those who might have been independent.
Mkhize believes the selection of candidates in some areas may have been rushed and says in future the process will need more time.
And I want to suggest, I think in future what we need to do is to ensure that our list processes are handled long ahead of the election, so that there is enough time for debates, for settling disagreements, for mobilization of support behind one candidate.
But for the ANC in KZN, their challenges may be far from over, with a pending court case by disgruntled branch members against the ANC. Mkhize says the party is worried, but that leaders are working on resolving the disputes to prevent a court battle. Ayanda Mhlongo, SABC News, Phoenix.
Now, the Department of Home Affairs will host the Mackay Migrant Awards. The awards will honour and recognise outstanding migrants or refugees contributing to the development of South Africa in their respective fields. The Minister of Home Affairs, Malusi Gigaba, spoke to SABC News earlier about the awards and the spirit that they aim to foster.
Those migrants in our midst in South African society that are making a positive contribution to South African society, be it in the economy, in the arts and culture, sports and recreation, in business, in education and other fields broadly. But we also aim to recognize South African communities that have integrated well with migrants. Last year it was the Diepsloot community. I don't know what community it will be this year. We will only know on the 11th of December when the awards are being held. And we also recognize South Africans that are making a positive contribution to other communities outside our country, because we are trying to balance the importance of migration, of immigration and emigration, to fostering social cohesion, recognizing that there are South Africans abroad that are raising our name and the flag of our country. The overwhelming majority of immigrants in South Africa are making a very positive contribution to our country. Your doctor could very well be an immigrant. Your favorite soccer player, rugby player, Tendai Mtawarira, William Sokpara himself. Today we've got Kama Billiards, we've got many others in different sports fields that are making a positive contribution. We celebrate them every weekend when they take to the field. Okpara won the CAF Champions League with Orlando Pirates. They brought us the first star from CAF in 1995. Your child's maths teacher or their lecturer at university could be somebody from somewhere else on the African continent. So, you know, we're trying to bring a spotlight to the fact that the stereotypes we have about immigrants really need to be done away with, so that we focus on immigrants as immigrants. The life of an immigrant is difficult. To go into a foreign country where you've got no relatives, to start making a life, eke out a living there, to try and make a life for yourself, establish a family. Some of them would have come as refugees, running away from difficult situations abroad. And that's what we're trying to highlight through these awards.
Well, of course, there's drought, there's flooding. It's all got to do with water. And the big concern is that water in the Harteperspoort Dam, well, on the border of Gauteng in the northwest, will reach unacceptable levels of pollution in the next couple of years if nothing is done. It's a matter of complete urgency. A famous tourist destination located on the western outskirts of Pretoria will subsequently risk losing its global standing owing to the pollution that is tainting the dam. The dam has yet again experienced a massive sewage spill which originated from the Northern Works wastewater treatment plant situated near the Fourways Diepsloot areas in Johannesburg North. Late last week, the plant released millions of litres of untreated sewage into the Yukskay River. Now, for a little bit more on this, we are joined by Sputnik Ratau, who is the spokesperson for the Department of Water and Sanitation in the capital this morning. Sputnik, a very good morning to you. Thanks for being with us.
Good morning, and thanks for having us this morning, Ivan.
Sputnik, you know, I went to Sun City this weekend and I drove past the Hartbeespoort Dam, and I was very concerned just with the way that it looks. It looks overgrown, and it looks a little bit, starting to look like a swamp a little bit in some parts of the dam. Should we be concerned after this latest spill?
Well, any spill, whenever it happens, is a source of concern, and that is why we are in discussions and engaging with the relevant bodies that are looking after those wastewater treatment works that we are referring to, the Northern Works, from the city of Johannesburg. There is also a spillage around the Leeuwkop prison as a result of some blockages in the system. There is also the Olifantsfontein that is under Ekurhuleni that is also impacting on the crocodile, as well as the Jukskei, and ultimately the Hartbeespoort Dam. And all of those, including obviously the one in the city of Tshwane, Sunderland Ridge, all of those have got a combined impact that is not very, very welcome on the Hartbeespoort Dam, which is one of our major tourist attractions, obviously, especially in the northwest.
Now, I've got reports that say, in addition to the spillages, more pollution emanating from pump stations, manholes, and other sewage plants are entering the river and the system. How are you guys looking at the department in coming to terms with this kind of outlook?
Well, it is one of those issues that we are looking at very seriously, and that is why, as I've indicated, we are in consultation with the different cities, the city of Tshwane, city of Johannesburg, city of Ekurhuleni, to look at those specific spillages that impact on that. We have issued directives to ERVAT, which is the responsibility of the city of Ekurhuleni, to Joburg Water and the city of Johannesburg, that are responsible for both Northern Works as well as the Leeuwkop prison sewer system. And we've also issued a directive to the city of Tshwane with regards to the Sunderland Ridge wastewater treatment works. Basically, what we are looking at is that there needs to be action to correct all these activities that are impacting on the Hartbeespoort. And there is work happening. We did have a meeting on Saturday with all the role players, including the action group, Hartis Tourism Group, and some of the other community groups that are interested in that Hartbeespoort Dam. But it's not just a question of engaging with them. It is a question of finding out what is it that needs to be done. And there is progress. If I'm to look at them individually, when you look at, for instance, Leeuwkop, there is a lot of work that is happening in order to dislodge that sewage that is blocking the sewer system within the precincts of Hartbeespoort Dam. There are contractors that are in place that are looking at how to find ways of dislodging that pollution. With the issue of Northern Works, the city of Johannesburg and Joburg Water have got a program in place that is looking at expanding the capacity, making sure that, there is also the issue of the impact of the rain that has fallen, because looking at how much capacity the Northern Works has got, Sunderland Ridge has got, as well as Olifantsfontein. The amount that those then have got to look at is exacerbated by the amount of rainfall that has happened. And therefore the idea is to expand the sizes of these works in order that they can be able to not just take care of the amount of sewage that is coming into the works themselves, but as well as to look at how they can accommodate the amount of rainfall that comes in. But also looking at the dams themselves, there are, as part of the infrastructure within the works, when you look at the Northern Works, for instance, there are those 2 dams that are being refurbished right now with the intention that there will be desilting of the dams and thereafter lining the dams so that the capacity going forward can be able to assist that. We do have an interest in this spillages being resolved, because we cannot go on with the kind of spillages and outlook that the dam has got right now.
Sputnik, thank you very much for joining us. That's a spokesperson for the Department of Water and Sanitation, coming to you live from the capital, Pretoria, of course, talking about the latest sewage spill into the system in Hartepeer's Poort Dam, on the outskirts of Gauteng, Johannesburg, west of Pretoria is where they put it. Now, our top story this morning, EFF President Julius Malema's case has been postponed until the 5th of June 2017. Now, to tell us a little bit more, let's go to our reporter Aldrin Samper. He's in Bloemfontein. A very good morning to you once again, Aldrin. Nice to have you back with us. Just quickly, before you talk to the stakeholders there, just give us an overview. What happened in the court?
Well, what I can tell you is that members and supporters of the EFF are chanting struggle songs outside the courtroom, where Julius Malema is expected to be addressing them shortly. And that is after he made a short court appearance here in the courtroom in the Bloemfontein Magistrates Court, where he was appearing on that case of incitement to trespassing. It's a case that stems back from his 2014 remarks at the EFF's inaugural conference, which was held right here in the Free State in Bloemfontein at the University of the Free State. And one of the complainants in that matter, all the complainants in that matter, was the AfriForum that laid a charge against Julius Malema. And then 2 years later, there's a case against him. While the case has been postponed, as you've just indicated, to the 5th of June, and that is to allow the process to unfold at the High Court, at the Gauteng High Court, where Julius Malema has applied for the Writers' Assemblies Act of 1956 to be declared invalid and unconstitutional. And the basis of that is the argument is that as it stands in South Africa post-apartheid, there is no such thing as Europeans and non-Europeans. Citizens in South Africa are not defined as that, and they believe that based on that act is irrelevant and invalid at this point here in South Africa post-apartheid. Some constitutional experts, as well as lawyers that I've been speaking to, said that actually that Julius Malema could have a case. Earlier on, I spoke to Floyd Shivambu, the deputy president of the EFF, asking him whether this could have been an oversight from the South African Law Reforms Commission, because remember that one of their tasks is to look at laws as they stand currently and to see whether they should be repealed, considering that some of those laws had been passed before democracy. And Floyd Shivambu's take on it was that actually it should be Parliament that sits down and look at all the laws that have been passed pre-democracy and see which laws should be reformed. And right now I'm going to introduce the complainant, the main complainant in this matter, as I've indicated earlier on, AfriForum. I'm going to speak to Kali Kriel. Kali, just a quick one, just with regards to this case. Are you guys at all surprised that this matter has been postponed all the way to 2017? It might even take a while before, even if this matter will be set down and be heard with regards to the complaint that you guys have laid.
No, we're not surprised at all. We expected that when we came to court today. But the fact is, we're happy about the fact that the wheels of justice have started to turn. And we are patient for the process to roll out, to make sure that in the end justice prevails. And we believe justice would be to hold people accountable that are inciting others to commit a crime. And that is especially a problem in a country such as ours, where we have a lawless seriousness problem. So we believe Julius Malema should be held accountable, and today was the start of that process.
Are you at all surprised, though, that you have this case from 2014 and another case which was now in 2016 in Newcastle? In between that space, Julius Malema has been making such remarks that land should be invaded, that there should be a land redistribution or land grabs without compensation, that it's only these two cases that are being heard, whereas Julius Malema might have made those remarks throughout the past 2 years.
Well, the fact is, it doesn't make sense for us to lay the same charge again and again and again, because the facts more or less are the same. It's unfortunate that it has taken 2 years to get to this point, but at least we got here, so we are happy about the fact that we can now go ahead. Another problem that we have is Julius Malema seems to be hiding behind a so-called Apartheid Act, but you can't just throw out the whole act. You have to look at specific sections of that. And the one section where it states that you are not allowed to incite people to commit a crime, that is not an undemocratic section. That is something we see in the judicial systems across the world, because if we are going to have a system in this country where you are allowed to incite people to commit a crime, you can just imagine what the chaos would be in the country, and it would be to the detriment of all people of this country, both black and white, and that's why we believe it's important to hold him accountable at this stage.
Does AfriForum at all have any evidence that Julius Malema's alleged incitement to ask people or call on people to invade land has actually taken place based on his call? Has this affected AfriForum members at all? I'm not too sure if it was you or speaking to other reporters, or if it was your colleague who was saying that based on some of those remarks, they believe that there's been a spike in farm killings.
There has unfortunately been a spike in farm killings, but of course it is always hard to prove a direct relationship. But if you have a violence problem in a country, then we believe it's totally irresponsible for somebody to make these kind of statements, because even if the end it only leads to one murder, it would be one murder too many. And we believe it's time that all South Africans unite to say we should promote mutual recognition and respect amongst all communities, and not allow people to polarize our society, because a polarized society might be in the short-term interest of Julius Malema's political career, but in the long term it would be bad for the country, both black and white.
Well, at the center of this case is the issue around land, and you know it's a very sensitive issue here in South Africa. And one of the questions that we're asking on Newsroom and asking our viewers is what's their take on Julius Malema's call in terms of the land must be brought back to what some believe is the rightful owners of the land, that's the indigenous people of South Africa. How does AfriForum say or suggest that the country can deal with the issue around land redistribution?
Well, I think we must say the land must go to the original people of this country, then all the land must go to the Khoisan people, because both Julius Malema's forefathers as well as my own came from various other places and not Southern Africa. But to go with regard to land, there is a Land Restitution Act where you can go to court and prove that land was taken away illegitimately or unlawfully. And in that process, we support the fact that when land was taken away unlawfully, it should be restituted. There is a process in that regard. But what we are unfortunately seeing is sweeping statements by a politician such as Julius Malema to say all the land has been stolen, and that does not take cognizance of many historical factors, such as the Mfukane, where Mzilikazi actually drove out people out of various parts of this country, such as the fact that only 30% of the country you can occupy without boreholes and that kind of technology. So there have also been agreements between the Swazi King and the so-called Voortrekkers to establish land. So we must take all those factors into account. We are in favor of restitution where people's land have been taken unlawfully, but you cannot just make a sweeping statement about stolen land, because who stole the land, when and where. That's the kind of fact facts that Julius Malema does not put on the table. He simply wants to make short-term political goals, and that is stirring up emotions, which I don't think is good for us.
A final question. The government, the ANC through their government had introduced the willing buyer, willing seller policy. They've argued that that policy doesn't work, and then now they've tried to enhance the Land Redistribution Act, and this is something that AfriForum is not happy about. What is it exactly in this act that AfriForum is not happy about?
Well, the fact is at any given stage, 7% of land is available on the market. What we've seen is a bureaucratic bureaucracy that did not work in that process. We saw corruption. So the problem is not with the farmers. The problem is an inefficient government that is not able to process this efficiently. And the easy way out now is to blame the process, while it's rather those people that should implement the process that is the problem. So what we are seeing is simply political statements, and it is not in line with reality.
Well, thank you so much. There you have it from Kali Kriel from AfriForum. They are the main complainants in this case that has been heard here at the Bloemfontein Magistrates Court. And of course, Eben, the question that has been on Newsroom, an issue around Julius Malema's call for land grabs, or how to bring land back to what he calls the rightful owners of the land, an issue that Kali Kriel has also touched on, quite a very sensitive issue, and we'll have to wait and see how that matter unfolds. And now that we have the Land Redistribution Amendment Act as well, and as Kali Kriel has pointed out, there are some sections of that act that they are unhappy about. It's back to you, Eben, in studio.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Aldrin Sampear, coming to you live from Bloemfontein, of course, looking at Julius Malema in the Magistrates Court there this morning. Now, of course, I can tell you we're waiting for Julius Malema to speak to the gathering masses outside the Magistrates Court. As soon as he does, we'll go back there. But right now, let's talk about BRICS, something that I'm really passionate and interested about. Let's set the scene. South Africa's Finance Minister, Pravin Gordhan, made large commitments to infrastructure spending, 300 billion for transport and logistics, 240 billion for energy, and 137 billion for water and sanitation in his mini-budget speech. Now, governments tend to prioritize infrastructure to promote economic growth, but financing from developed nations can sometimes be a challenge and create high risk for deficit and debt. But the BRICS nations, Brazil, Russia, India, China and South Africa, have developed a new development bank that aims to promote faster growth in these regions. I'm joined in studio now by Wits Finance Journalism Lecturer and Mail and Guardian Business Editor, Kevin Davey. Very good morning to you, Kevin. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
Kev, just give us a quick overview. Where's BRICS right now and where's the BRICS Bank?
Well, the BRICS Bank, I suppose, is a kind of sharp end. You can have like this talk shop, but finally he has a way of accessing money and accessing loans, a new channel, shall we say, maybe at preferential rates. So it's an exciting and interesting development. At this time, though, we don't know the specifics of how it's going to work in terms of what the actual costs of borrowing from them is, or at least I've not seen this.
Or should we be concerned that so very little information has been available? This has been a discussion around the Development Bank that's been ongoing for quite a few years now.
It has. They've just issued announcements around the first kinds of loans, and I think they're quite open to changing and coming up with a kind of new structure. So the one big risk you always have as a developing economy or any other economy is if your currency falls, then your cost of servicing the debt increases. And what they're talking about there is a very interesting thing where they're going to issue this debt locally. Now, this I don't think is in the first tranche, but they're talking about coming forward. So in other words, you haven't got the currency risk. But I think we need to understand exactly how that works and what is the cost of borrowing and how preferential is it, shall we say, against existing mechanisms or avenues.
Do you think the BRICS Bank could change the game or fill that gap, for that matter?
I think the main thing for me is simple. Choice is a good thing. And if we have that choice and we can look at what is on offer, that is a good thing. But I also don't think that they're here to shower money our way. I fully expect them to operate under really high levels of governance. They want it to be a respectable institution where you are expected to pay. And on our side, it doesn't let us off the hook. Government guarantees still have to be in place.
Yeah.
And the bang for buck from the public service in particular and the state-owned enterprises will not go away. We will need to run these things more efficiently. And that's what Pravin Gordhan has been setting out in his various mini budgets, medium budgets, and so on.
The NDP, of course, have been the discussion or the key focus in recent years. Something like the development bank through BRICS. Do you think that could be the turbocharger that really ignites this NDP of ours?
I would still look for better governance back home. I don't think there's a free lunch here. Running your systems better, looking for bigger bang for buck locally, and then you're going to have less trouble in sourcing the loans and servicing them. So I don't think there's some kind of magic bullet that, hey, there's money offshore there and they're going to shower it our way and we can do whatever we want. We have to run these things efficiently. And, but having said that, the fact that we've got more choice about where we source this capital from, particularly if this is kind of foreign funds that we can access in a sense locally, that's quite an exciting development.
Kevin, I would like to continue this discussion, but of course you're not the big news today. Julius Malema is the big news there on the big screen behind us. He's been in court already. Let's go over to, well, just outside the Magistrates Court in Bloemfontein, where Julius Malema is about to make a firebrand speech, I'm sure.
Kaufela from national leadership, province, the region, the province, from other provinces, leaders from other provinces, the ground forces, EFF, le councillor kaufela, by EFF. Like the Deputy President has already spoken, we want to take this opportunity to thank the ANC for having done a wonderful job of calling this rally today. That's why you see Mukebo Dlamini here, a member of the ANC coming to witness the success of the rally organized by the ANC. Because if it was not of the ANC, we're not going to be here in Free State today. So they invited us. And they said we have an appointment with them here at the Bloemfontein Magistrate Court because we must come and discuss the apartheid legislation. They want an assistance on how best can they repeal the apartheid legislation. But they do not know how. So they want the best brains of the EFF to be used in doing away with that legislation. So the ANC has called us to come and help them to do away with an apartheid legislation. Because when we take it to court, we are going to use our own ideas to demonstrate how this law is not in line with the Constitution. And that's what the ANC want. Because the ANC does not have the brains to challenge that legislation. So they pretend like they are charging us, they are not. They want to do away with the apartheid law, but they don't know how. And the EFF will do the job. They do so because the act is about protecting white people. Floyd says Europeans, white people. That's a polite way the apartheid was using of saying white people. They were saying Europeans, so that they confuse those who do not understand language dynamics. But what Europeans means is white people. This was a law passed after the adoption of the Freedom Charter on the 26th of June 1955 at Kliptown. They passed this law reacting to the Freedom Charter because the Freedom Charter was saying, occupy the land wherever you choose to occupy the land. It's not Malema, it's the Freedom Charter. It's not Malema, it's Z.K. Matthews, it's Owar Tambo, it's Walter Sisulu, it's A.P. Mda, it's Nelson Mandela, who said before me that you must occupy the land wherever you choose. So the ANC is using the law, which was meant to challenge the Freedom Charter, against anyone who promotes the aspirations of the Freedom Charter. Because all we are saying, if every single clause of the Freedom Charter is implemented, our people will be free from economic oppression. The ANC dumped the Freedom Charter in a political dustbin. We went to fetch it, we cleaned it up, and they are offended by the fact that we have cleaned up the Freedom Charter. We are implementing the Freedom Charter. So, no law that seeks to protect white people will succeed in a democratic South Africa. They say I said in Newcastle, we must slaughter white people. I never said that. If I wanted to say it, I will say it. But all I said was that we are not calling for their slaughter. Unlike them, they slaughtered black people. They killed black people. They committed black genocide. Now declare the things that he can stand up to lecture us about incitement. He has not incited de Klerk. He presided over the killing of our people. And de Klerk must know that every evening when he sleeps, he must pray that Malema must never be a president of South Africa. Because if I become the president of South Africa, I will lock up de Klerk for the crimes they committed against black people for a very long time. De Klerk deserves to be in jail. De Klerk deserves to rot in jail. De Klerk was never punished for the killing of black people. Who is de Klerk to lecture me about democracy? A murderer? I will never listen to de Klerk. My wish is to see de Klerk in prison. My wish is to see de Klerk suffering for a very long time for the crimes they committed against black people. They were never punished for that. Hey, de Klerk, I'm not the one who introduced reconciliation. I am not for reconciliation. I am for justice. There is no reconciliation without justice. And justice is the return of the land. There will never be justice if the land is not returned. Don't talk to me about peace. There's no peace without justice. Justice is the return of the land. There will never be peace at the expense of justice. All what they see from us, we are just pretending. Our smiles are not genuine. We are hating inside. We have lost our loved ones. They were buried in unidentifiable graves. Our sisters, our brothers were killed by de Klerk, by Botha, by Malan. They were buried in graves which cannot be identified till today. And they say to us, we must forget and move forward. We will never forget until the bodies of our loved ones are returned to our families and they are buried with dignity. De Klerk, it's not me who's speaking. De Klerk, you are not troubled by Julius Malema. You are troubled by the spirits of those who died, who were killed by your government, who were buried in unidentifiable graves. I'm fighting for those people. I want justice for those families. I don't have anything against white people. But I have a problem because black people are suffering in this country. Why us? Are we a cursed nation? Did Jesus Christ die for us to suffer like this? What have we done to deserve such treatment in our own country? Why are we not finding waiters and waitresses that are white? Why are we not finding farm workers that are white? Why are we not finding security guards that are white? Why are we not finding the domestic workers that are white? What have we done? Why is it only us who are working, who are providing a cheap labor? What have we done? To who? Why is it a black nation alone suffering so much? Our people do not have houses. Our people do not have jobs. All white people are working. All white people have got everything beautiful that comes with this land. We have nothing. And then I hear pastors have released statements that Malema is inciting violence. Why? Because I speak against white people, because I'm exposing the suffering of our people. Where were you, pastor? Where were you, bishop, when they put a black person in a coffin alive? A white man forcing a black person into a coffin. Where were you, pastor, to release a statement condemning that? You will never do that because it's a black person. Why? A black life is cheap. It doesn't matter. When you talk about white people, you invite enemies. I'm not hating them. Why is the black nation suffering? Why is the ANC not doing anything about it? We will do something about it. We will fight for it. We will do everything in our power, whatever it takes, to collapse white supremacy and replace it with an equal society where there will not be black or white, there will be humanity. All of us, we will enjoy the fruits of our freedom. It's not yet Uhuru, but we will arrive there. With the EFF alive, we will arrive there. We cannot be scant of prison. We cannot be scant of persecution. Our leaders have gone through worse situation. We are not going through anything. So you can be guaranteed that we will never retreat. When we leave here, you see any beautiful piece of land, you like it, occupy it, it belongs to you. It is your land. It is the land of our forefathers. It is a land that was taken from us by white people by force through genocide. They killed our people. We are not talking violence. We are not promoting violence. But I cannot guarantee the future. I'm not a prophet. I'm talking now. We are not carrying any weapons. I will never kill white people. Why should I kill them? I will never revenge for what they did. I'm asking politely for the land to be returned. And if they don't return it, I cannot guarantee what will happen next. But they must be assured that this land we are fighting for peacefully, we are fighting for in parliament, we are fighting for this land on the streets, because we must conscientize society. So they are not conscious. Black people, some of them, they still suck up to whites. Hey, Malema is inciting hatred, Hey, hatred what? You are suffering, man. Stop hating yourself. You say Malema is spreading hatred because Malema loves himself. I love my blackness. That's why I speak for blackness. And I'm not ashamed to speak up for blackness. Because that's who I am. I'm not fighting against white people, but I'm not fighting for them. And I will never fight for them because they don't want anything. They've got everything. Why do you fight for people who don't want anything? AfriForum is a boeremag. It's a group of Afrikaners who still wish for apartheid. They will never see it. Afrikaner boys, the poppers will dance. The EFF is coming for you, boys. Afrikaner boys, the ANC has made you to think this thing is still Orange Free State. This thing is not Orange Free State. This is Free State. When we take over power, Afrikaner males, you will know your place. Just pray. Pray to ancestors. Pray to Malan. Pray to Verwoerd. Pray and ask them for EFF not to come into power. Because we come into power, Afrikaner male, this side, this is where you belong. This is how you're going to behave. They must know. These Afrikaner males, they must know we are not scared of them. Ideologically, politically, and otherwise. We can take each other toe to toe. We are not scared of Afrikaners. This is not your land. You must know your place. You are visitors here. And the long stay of visitors depends on their conduct. If you continue to misbehave, feeding our people to lions, putting our people who are still alive in the coffins, then you are applying for something else. Be warned. We are not scared of anything. That includes the reclaiming of this land. That's why they opened a case in Free State and Newcastle. Because that's why these Afrikaners still think they are in charge. In these small dorpies, they think they are in charge. So they must know that even in the small dorpies, we are arriving. We are unstoppable. We are reclaiming what rightfully belongs to us. So, I see a lot of white people crying. Stop being crybabies. There's no one who's going to kill you. I've got one friend, one white friend called Andriano. So if we were to kill white people, I will have to start with Andriano. So I won't do that. So stop being crybabies. You are scared because you know what you have done to us. You are troubled by what you have done to us. And you think we are like you. We are not like you. We are not like you. Don't push us too far. This country must be returned into the hands of rightful owners. There is no white man who's going to be driven to the sea. We need you here. We need you to see black people prospering. We need you to see black people being successful. We want to prove it to you that we don't need a white master to be successful. We are going to nationalize the banks. We are going to nationalize the mines. We are going to expropriate the land without compensation. And when we nationalize, we are going to start with the properties of Rupert, Oppenheimer, all of them, these rich ones who think they are untouchable. We start with them. I heard Rupert making some silly joke. I'm not your friend. Must never think I'm a friend of a white monopoly capital. You think we are playing because we say Zuma must go, and you are saying Zuma must go, and you think that can make us friends. No. We say it from different positions. You are saying it for your own reasons, we are saying it for our own reasons. It doesn't make us friends. Remember that our strategic objective is to crush white monopoly capital. What is white monopoly capital? It's Rupert, it's Oppenheimer. We must crush them. They must come to our level. They must not be super rich. They must be to the level of everybody in an equal society. Fellow fighters, I can guarantee you the EFF is the only thing in South Africa that is black owned. There's nothing that black people own here, including taxis. They don't belong to black people. That guy who owns taxis there in the township, you think they are his? They are not. He took them through credit from the bank. So those combis, taxis, belong to the bank. The bank belongs to a white man. So the only thing owned by black people is EFF. There is no white man, not a single one, who can claim authority over the EFF. That's why we can say anything we like. We don't care whether the white masters are complaining or not. You will do those things there to the ANC. We don't have white supervisors. We don't want white supervisors. That's why EFF must survive. That's why EFF must be the biggest thing to demonstrate to the white master that even black-owned things can be successful without supervision of a white master. This is the only thing. ANC is white-owned. That's why when you speak against white people in Newcastle, the first party to release a statement is the ANC. Because the white master says, hey, you see, you're quiet. Come on, man, go ahead. And then you are Mona Gwede with that movement as if it's a penguin. So we don't want such things. You can't find such things in the EFF. No white master calls the EFF for anything. Whatever we do, whatever we say, it is out of our own conviction, not because there is a white master that directed us to say that. The things we say about white people, if we had a white master, do you think he would have approved of such things? So these ones who have a mind of a rat, they still think that we are controlled by whites because they are controlled by whites. They can't own anything, small things, without supervision of white people. I don't hate white people. I don't want a white master. I will never have a white master. I've never worked for a white person in my entire life. I will never do that because I want to demonstrate and I want to inspire generations after generation that a black person can be successful without a white master. The system hates the EFF. The system hates Malema because they can't control them. There is no white master. The reason they hate us so much is because there is no white master who can say, I can vouch for the EFF. The media doesn't like us. Never. I mean, on my way to here, I get a headline that I'm arrested by the media. And then I start looking inside my car to check. Hey man, is this thing prison wall so? Or they confuse me with Mukeo. Arrested for what? No, Malema was speeding. Which car? Because I don't have a car. Which car will I speed? And because I don't have a car, which car will I drive? I know Makashule Nabeling Chata High Motile or Dim Twara. Bapale to Banaba Low. They will never do anything. Yeah. Babe lady in Chamotile Mo can stop you every 2 minutes. Yeah, side. Ever back Shevakamu, no driving my lamb. Baba disappointed. Because never sabatur kifitlimu. My policemen in uniform, communicating lies that they arrested me. Let us tweet a little. Let us come out from distance. Madiaka lekasi abon Dinwa madikilena. You will never touch my blood, Baloi. I'm going to defeat you. Hey, Kefedit, I'm going to phrase that. Yaloki are high. Never none or get a robala tronco. Go robala luaka musadi di banaba. Once more, I defeated you. Because you are a group of clowns. You don't know how to strategize. You don't know how to catch the enemy. I'm always 2 steps ahead of you. Careful, we are taking over this country. This country belongs to you. Continue fighting. Don't be scared. Freedom is coming tomorrow. Amanda! Hauwe Musa Makashule, hauwe! Hauwe Musa Mashodi, hauwe! Hauwe Musa Zuma, hauwe! Pili Kamuswa EFF Pili. Amanda! Hauno Makubis! Siaya! No Makubi, Siaya, no Mabese Tubola, Besi Shaya, Besi Bopa, no Mabese Tubola, Besi Shaya.
Well, there you have it, Julius Malema live from Bloemfontein, coming to you live there. That's after the court postponed the case, of course, and of course struggle songs, as you heard in the background there, coming through. Well, we'll be taking a break right now, and we'll be coming to you with the top of the hour just after this.
Look at artists, they've got one of the abilities to either form new conversations, they can paint a picture of a country, they can paint a picture of a mindset of a country.
The Cape Town-based ballet dancer recently won at the 2016 and 2017 Rolex Mentor and Prodigy Arts Initiative.
South African hip-hop right now is sitting at a level where it's Ngutu, Yippee and Roll Up. When you put them all in one room, you actually have like the ultimate super South African fan.
And you're watching Trends, do not go anywhere. Stay right there.
Catch Trends for that 1 hour weekly dose of art and entertainment news every Saturday from 12 to 1.
Top story this hour, EFF leader Julius Malema, incitement to commit trespassing. Court case has been postponed to the 5th of June next year. State Security Minister David Mashlobo says he is considering legal action following allegations that he is linked to an illegal horn trafficker. And the University of Pretoria started with exams this morning despite calls by the Fees Must Fall movement for exams to be boycotted. Those are all your headlines. Top story now. State Security Minister David Mashlobo has condemned the media for what he called irresponsible and biased reports following allegations that he's linked to an illegal rhino horn trafficker. In an exclusive interview with SABC News, the minister said or denied allegations of any links with the rhino horn trafficker.
It was very actually disgusting to wake up to the news. Firstly, by South Africa's publications that came up, one of the publications even making a big poster to say, "I'm friends with a rhino poacher," which is a very serious allegation. And later on, during the course of the day, one of the international broadcaster, Al Jazeera, in their advert, when I watched it in the YouTube, that were definitely saying, "I'm a friend with the person." Fortunately, I had an opportunity to look at the whole documentary. One of the things that I'm more worried is the manner in which issues get to be reported. I had an opportunity through my spokesperson when a journalist asked certain questions from Al Jazeera. We answered the question. One of the questions was to say, "Do I know the man? Is my friend?" That's what he alleges on a video clip, which then the video clip later on actually showed. Then that the man have visited his home, and then equally his employees has been sent to my house to provide spa treatment. Ultimately, my wife is doing business. We gave a full response to say, one, I'm not a friend of the person. Even in the interview that the person has done, the person does not say I'm a friend. The person says he knows me very well and how I visit the spa treatment. Therefore, this thing about friendship that is becoming a big issue international and local is a fallacy, and it seeks to defame me. Have I ever gone to their house? I've never been to the man's house. I don't even know where his house is. I know the face of the man. The only time I became aware of even his name is when we got the question that we've responded to. Whether did we actually receive any kind of a spa treatment in our own family, the answer is a big no. They don't even know where I stay in Nelspruit.
Meanwhile, court proceedings against the EFF leader Julius Malema have been postponed to the 5th of June next year. Malema appeared in the Bloemfontein Magistrates Court on charges of contravening the Riotous Assembly Act after he called on the EFF members to occupy vacant land. Civil rights group AfriForum brought a complaint against Malema to the courts, saying it aims to hold politicians accountable. Malema, denies allegations that he incited violence against white people. Meanwhile, EFF Deputy President Floyd Shivambu has dismissed reports that Julius Malema was arrested for speeding and for failing to stop at a roadblock. Speaking to SABC News earlier this morning, Shivambu says Malema respects traffic laws and was not driving his car when the speeding incident happened.
There was people who were driving him who were stopped for speed, and that is an issue that they are handling separately. He's not driving his own car, so there's no way that he could have been arrested. So we want to dismiss with contempt the news reports that the Commander-in-Chief is arrested because he's not arrested. He will not be arrested for speed because he respects the rules of the road like all South African citizens who respect the rules of the road. So he's going to be appearing in court today. So that report must be dismissed and then we move forward with what we are here for today.
Examinations have started at the University of Pretoria. This despite calls by the #FeesMustFall movement for exams to be boycotted. University security say they prevented the movement's attempt to burn one of the students' residences. However, some students have already written their examinations that started this morning. The university's outgoing SRC president says they are attempting to engage management so that examinations can be deferred to early next year. The African National Congress must ask itself the difficult questions if it wants to self-correct. Now that's what the ANC Secretary-General Gwede Mantashe told party structures in Mafikeng at the weekend. He says that corruption, looting of state resources and factionalism are impacting on party unity.
The ANC taking stock.
How do we deal with promotion of friends and pursuit of selfish interests?
Frank talk from the ANC Secretary General. He's also warned of forces trying to weaken the party. And he should know, says Mantashe, because he's a primary target.
Today, I was conspired with Malema. Last week, I was conspiring with Jackson and Praveen. Last Sunday, I was being sought by the Hawks. And that will continue. And I say, the period we're in, these things are going to continue. And the intention is very simple. Divide the leadership of the ANC.
The ANC's assessment of its Northwest structure is not flattering. Mantashe says it's been unable to deal with dissent within its ranks and should guard against self-destruction.
The biggest loss in percentage term in the local government was in the Northwest, 15% decline.
The ANC says it will use internal tools to guide its turnaround strategy and will start with rejuvenating its provincial structures. Selwa Tatai, SABC News, Mahikeng.
ANC Treasurer General Zweli Mkhize says the party may still reconcile with members who contested the August election as independents. In KwaZulu-Natal alone, over 200 independents participated in the election, the majority from the ANC. Mkhize met with ANC branches in Phoenix, north of Durban, meeting branches in KZN local government matters to talk about that.
Drove some dissatisfied members to go at it alone, registering as independents in the August election. Now party leaders want to rectify errors and, where possible, to reconcile.
What the National Executive Committee has said, that there was a lot of tension, there was a lot of gatekeeping, there was a lot of factionalism. We need to go and resolve that. In some instances, it might actually mean that the ANC leadership will have to consider all those factors to decide on what is the fate of those who might have been independent.
Mkhize believes the selection of candidates in some areas may have been rushed and says in future the process will need more time.
And I want to suggest, I think in future what we need to do is to ensure that our list processes are handled long ahead of the election, so that there is enough time for debates, for settling disagreements, for mobilization of support behind one candidate.
But for the ANC in KZN, their challenges may be far from over, with a pending court case by disgruntled branch members against the ANC. Mkhize says the party is worried, but that leaders are working on resolving the disputes to prevent a court battle. Ayanda Mhlongo, SABC News, Phoenix.
The Department of Home Affairs will host Mkhaya Migrant Awards. The awards will honor and recognize outstanding migrants contributing to the development of South Africa in their respective fields. The Minister of Home Affairs, Malusi Gigaba, spoke to SABC News earlier about the awards and the spirit that they aim to foster.
Recognize those migrants in our midst in South African society that are making a positive contribution to South African society, be it in the economy, in the arts and culture, sports and recreation, in business, in education and other fields broadly. But we also aim to recognize South African communities that have integrated well with migrants. Last year it was the Diepsloot community. I don't know what community it will be this year. We will only know on the 11th of December when the awards are being held. And we also recognize South Africans that are making a positive contribution to other communities outside our country, because we are trying to balance the importance of migration, of immigration and emigration, to fostering social cohesion, recognizing that there are South Africans abroad that are raising our name and the flag of our country. The overwhelming majority of immigrants in South Africa are making a very positive contribution to our country. Your doctor could very well be an immigrant. Yeah. Your favorite soccer player, rugby player, Tendai Mtawarira, William Sokpara himself. Today we've got Kama Billiards, we've got many others in different sports fields that are making a positive contribution. We celebrate them every weekend when they take to the field. Okpara won the CAF Champions League with Orlando Pirates. They brought us the first star from CAF in 1995. Your child's maths teacher or their lecturer at university could be somebody from somewhere else on the African continent. So, you know, we're trying to bring a spotlight to the fact that the stereotypes we have about immigrants really need to be done away with, so that we focus on immigrants as immigrants. The life of an immigrant is difficult. Yeah. To go into a foreign country where you've got no relatives, to start making a life, eke out a living there, to try and make a life for yourself, establish a family. Some of them would have come as refugees, running away from difficult situations abroad. And that's what we're trying to highlight through these awards.
Well, there you have some awards now. We'll take a break and we'll be right back after that.
Police found powerful military explosives when they swooped on a house in Springs on the Gauteng.
Some of the weapons seized at this house included rocket-propelled grenades, rifles, and even rounds of ammunition.
All military explosives that we found that you cannot obtain a commission.
The weapons found at the house not only had the potential to cause major damage to property, but they also put many lives at risk.
I could have lost any one of my family members, or most of my family members.
Do you live in a city, lead a fast-paced lifestyle, having only coffee for breakfast and grab a garage pie and a fizzy drink for lunch most days? So you don't have time to cook a meal or hit the gym, or you don't have time to pick up a little bit of exercise there. So you pick up weight. But did you ever think that you are raising your risk of diabetes? Now, type 2 diabetes is the most common kind here in South Africa. Last year, around 2.3 million cases of diabetes were reported in the country. Joining us now in the studio is the MMC for Health and Social Development, Dr. Mpho Palatse. Doctor, very good morning to you and welcome.
Good morning to you.
First and foremostly, earlier this year, the city of Johannesburg partnered with Novo Nordisk, is that Nordisk, and as well as Wits to map out the scale of the problem of diabetes in the city. Tell us about your findings and how serious is the problem, especially here in Johannesburg?
Yes, that's correct. We are in partnership with Wits and Novo Nordisk, South Africa. This is a city-changing diabetes initiative, which is a global initiative with a focus on cities. And the reason it's focusing on cities is because with rapid urbanization, we're seeing a lot of unhealthy lifestyle practices. Diabetes is a disease of lifestyle. So in other words, how you live, what you eat, and your level of physical activity can increase your risk of diabetes. And that's why the focus on cities. Now, with about 66% of the world's population living in and around cities, it becomes important to understand the burden of diabetes in cities. Now, our results, we rolled this out in about 14 clinics in the city of Johannesburg, in all the 7 regions. We had a sample size of about 2,427, mostly about 95.6% African and about 74% female participants. Now, our findings were quite interesting, and a lot of it in keeping with the literature. So what we found, for instance, was that a lot of our participants, about 27% 26% of our participants had a family history of diabetes. Now, we know that family history is one of the risk factors for developing diabetes. So 26% also quite high, on the high side. The other thing, we already spoke about weight. So in our sample, we had about 29% of overweight participants, and 37% of our participants actually were obese. So a total of 66% of our participants were either overweight or obese, with a body mass index above normal. Now, we have an obesogenic society, and that is a concern. In a society like that, considering that obesity and overweight are such high risk factors for diabetes, it becomes even more important, you know, to educate people and prevent diabetes.
Is it because people live in a city and it's very fast-paced that they don't eat properly, they don't exercise properly? Is that what contributes to this lifestyle disease that's on the increase?
So we eat highly processed foods, high in sugar content, fat content, and our lifestyles are very sedentary. So you get into the car, you drive to work, get out of your car, into the lift. You know, most of the time we don't use the stairs, go to your office, you sit on your chair, work all day, you know, so, and we knock off late. Sometimes there isn't time or we're not making the time. I don't know if I should say there isn't time or we're not making the time to exercise. So yes, our lifestyles promote obesogeneity.
Now, there seems to be a misconception about the demographics of diabetes and of the groups most at risk for diabetes. Did the study find that there was a larger population of the black population that has got diabetes, or is it across the board?
Well, as I already indicated, in our sample of about 2,427, we already had a lot of black people. So 95.6% of our participants were black. This could be a sampling issue as well, you know, because as I said, we only did this in 14 of our clinics, of our 119 clinics in the entire city.
So that maybe need to be expanded to see that, yes? Yes,
so I will not make that claim, not from this study, although, yes, there are predispositions, you know, racially as well.
You also talk about female and male gender. In terms of this, who's most at risk? Is it more female than men?
So again, in our study, we had 74% females, but this just tells us about our sample. So this could be just because of health-seeking behavior, because this was a clinic-based study. It could just indicate that more women visit the clinic than men, particularly primary healthcare clinic, which deals with chronic conditions. You know, we do know that with trauma and acute conditions, even men will seek help when they need it.
It also came out that it's more people at risk, because it was done in the city, that it's more people that's living in the city that's at risk of getting diabetes than people living in urban areas. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. That is in keeping with literature, and our study also suggests a similar trend. So if you look at rural areas, for instance, I'll give you an example. If you're going to visit your neighbor in the rural area, chances are you will walk a bit of a distance compared to in an urban area where they're more densely populated. So such things contribute. So our lifestyle. And also in rural areas, there's still a lot of agricultural activity as compared to urban areas. So even in terms of what people eat, there's a huge difference. We're eating more processed foods in cities than the people in rural areas.
Now, we are currently sitting with the proposed sugar tax that probably will come in next year. And do you think this will work for South Africa, and it will assist in terms of making sure that we don't have all these lifestyle diseases afflicting our nation?
Most definitely. Healthy public policy is one way of assisting people to make the right choices, because people don't always make the right choices even when they know that that's what they ought to do. So introducing sugar tax is one healthy public policy which I really support. I think it will assist with more than just diabetes, but a lot of other problems that are associated with being overweight.
As a department, what are you now putting in place in order to make sure that people perhaps behave correctly and eating correctly and do some exercise?
One of the things we need to strengthen, of course, is education. You know, we need to educate people more. But I think also over and above screening for diabetes in our facilities, we need to do more population-based screening. So go where the people are, people that will never come to the clinic. So that needs to be strengthened, you know. But we also need to look at how we treat diabetes. We found in our study that some people on treatment are not controlled. So only 31% of those that had diabetes on treatment were controlled. So a vast 69% was uncontrolled. So this shows that we need to also improve how we treat diabetes, and we need to stress here that medicine is not the only treatment. You know, it goes hand in hand with also your diet, how you eat, and also physical activity.
There you have it. Unfortunately, we've run out of time, Doctor. I would like to have more of this discussion because it needs a lot more time. But thank you so much for coming in and joining us in studio.
Thank you for having
That
me.
was the MMC for Health and Social Development, Dr. Mpho Phalatse, telling you a little bit more about Diabetes Day. So look after yourself, exercise, eat correctly, make sure that you're on track.
So people with prosthesis can live normal life.
Prosthesis actually manufactures the artificial limbs.
I can pick up stuff. My friends think it's awesome. I like my railway.
I can walk normally. There's nothing that I can do. It changed my life from the beginning to where I am now.
Dystrophic dysplasia is a type of dwarfism that affected all my major limbs.
Join Health Talk every Saturday for all your health news.
Welcome back. I'm Kendall Mohammed. The time has just hit 25 minutes before 12 o'clock. Top story, Alex Noren. He's the 2016 Nedbank Golf Challenge champion. The Swede played a near-perfect final round, shooting a 63 to finish on 14 under par.
Noren started the day tied for third on 5 under par. He found the momentum he needed to climb up the leaderboard as early as the first hole. The Swede birdied the first 3 holes to cut the overnight lead in half. Noren made 3 more birdies before the turn to wrestle the lead from Zhuang Hun Wang. He rode this momentum on the back 9 and there was no catching him.
Well, it's huge. I've tried to get in this event for about my whole career, and finally I did by the a little bit bigger field this week, and to win it feels amazing, you know, and the crowd here is amazing. Everything about the week has felt truly amazing. Yeah, I wasn't very happy with the round yesterday, and I went to my hotel room because we couldn't practice on the range because of the big storm, and just were in there for an hour just trying to figure out what I needed to do. And
You found something?
I found something, yeah, and then you get a bit more relaxed as a player, and you might be able to hold a putt, and I mean, it was one of those rounds, yeah.
Brandon Grace led the South African charge, finishing tied for third on 7 under par. Louis Oosthuizen and Jaco van Zyl rounded up the top 10, in 9th and 10th respectively. Oosthuizen, who had a horrid final round, is 7th in the race to Dubai, with 1 more tournament to go. Mnikelo Madala, SABC News.
Now, Bafana Bafana's head coach, Sheikh Mashaba, has been suspended with immediate effect by the South African Football Association. Now, Mashaba will not be joining the team on their trip to Mozambique, as SAFA has deemed it necessary to employ disciplinary measures after what they called a regrettable incident at the Peter Mokaba Stadium. Now, according to a short statement released by SAFA, assistant coach Owen Dagamo will take charge of the team in the international friendly match against Mozambique tomorrow. SAFA says they will not be making any further comments on this matter out of respect for the dignity of the coach and the association, as well as the legally privileged nature of such proceedings. It's still unclear what charges Mashaba is facing, but he was seen having an altercation with the SABC presenter before a post-match interview. In recent months, Mashaba has had an acrimonious relationship with the South African media, accusing it of negative reporting. Now, after an eventful sporting weekend, I had a chat with BC Cricket Analysis's Dumisa Makalima and SABC Sports commentator Xolele Sochilelwa, and asked them if South Africa can win the second test match out in Australia in Hobart.
On the driving seat at the moment. I don't see them losing this test match, although we've lost a day of rain. But we're in the driving seat. Temba Bavuma and Kunin de Kock batted very well to put us in a position where we really cannot lose the game. It's entirely up to us. Australia are quite a long way behind. about 120 on runs behind. They still have, some work to do with Steve Smith and Kawaja looking good at the crease.
What do you think?
Look, from the moment they left Old Tambo for Australia, it was always going to be interesting as to how they present themselves down under against a side like Australia, with players of top quality in Stark and Hazelwood, Smith and David Warner. But there were cracks immediately when they arrived in Australia. So chipping in with some of the between Steve Smith and so there was always going to be in Australia. Having the Faf du Plessis, the kind of player that he is, has really helped them to be where they are today. Again, partnerships have helped South Africa as well, something that hasn't happened for the Aussies. Twice they've been bowled out for less than 100 in Perth and here in Hobart, and South Africa has been able from there on to kick on and really take control of the match. The partnership of Quinton de Kock today with Themba Bavuma again really put South Africa in a commanding position, which is what happened in Perth as well. So positive signs. And one thing that we also need to look at now is to really be happy and look at what the selectors are doing, because some of the selections, it's brave selections. It's selections that are working for the team.
They've been absolutely inspired. I mean, looking at the results, I mean, bowled out for 85. It's one of of the 5 heaviest losses that the Australian. Well, when I talk losses, I'm talking about their batsmen being wiped out. This is in the top 5.
Yeah, Australia haven't gelled together as a batting unit. We saw that in Sri Lanka when they were cleaned up 3-0 by Sri Lanka. In Sri Lanka. So they've had issues coming into this Test match series. Obviously, we spoke about the one-day series where they struggled against South Africa. So they've got their backs against the wall, and I remember reading the news yesterday talking about the batsmen haven't, quite been prepared, which is not quite, accurate, because, South Africa has had, just the same amount of break as Australia did. So in terms of preparation, we're not quite there yet, but South Africa are playing good cricket. That we must acknowledge. The likes of Kagiso Rabada leading the bowling attack, they've done very well. Hence, we find ourselves in this good position.
And Philander as well, doing well. Let's talk to a little bit about bad news that we heard over the weekend. Alvaro Peterson, a stalwart of the Proteas setup, has been accused by the Cricket South Africa Anti-Corruption Unit of contriving to fix matches in the domestic T20. What do you make of that?
Look, and then he also obviously came out and defended himself, quite rightly so. But knowing Cricket South Africa, they would have gone through every bit of investigation with the SABC and every information that they would have needed to come up and release such a statement. Again, it's going to be a process now for Alvaro and his crew to respond and how it goes forward. But again, it's a cloud that's hovering over Cricket South Africa. It's a cloud that's been hovering for a while now. Sadly, it's now going to have to be dealt with in a separate way, because the Test team is going about their own business, because if they were losing down under, then it would affect everyone. But quite disappointing that such allegations would come against a player like Alvaro Peterson, who has been around that setup. Again, we spoke, Dumi and I, yesterday about Tamito Lekile. It's a trend. It's guys who've been in that setup, guys who've been around for 10 to 15 years, and it's really quite disappointing.
You say disappointing, absolutely. But having said that, I find a couple of things which are interesting, which have cropped up in this match-fixing scandal. One is contriving. That word is always contriving. It's never fixed a match. 2 is just the domestic T20. And 3 is just players of colour. Having worked in the cricketing fraternity, what do you make of those 3 points?
It's very sad, especially, after Scholar just mentioned, the amount of cricket that the guys have played and what they've done for the game. And like I said to him yesterday, I can't put a finger to it as to why. If somebody asked me again as to why do you think players tend to go down that route, especially experienced players, you can never put a finger to it, But it's something which is a concern, because, before every start of each big tournament, you do get these meetings and these briefings that, you are briefed about, what to look out for, especially, when you are playing abroad. So we are briefed, all of us, quite clearly. But I just cannot put a finger to it, and guys just get themselves involved in things that they should never be involved in.
But my question to you, is there more to the story than just what meets the eye?
I would never know. I would never know, you know. But it's difficult because guys do get approached.
Yeah.
You know, it's very easy for players to get approached. You know, it's accessible. But you know, it's a very difficult one, you know, to actually answer and say this is what happens during this situation.
You got some thoughts?
Yeah, and it's interesting how we look at it because players are now playing in foreign countries for 2 months. They spend 2 months in Australia, 2 months in India, 2 months in the West Indies. So there you come across with different cultures. You come across different people. You come across different team environments. So within those team environments, you come with different players who themselves can lure you into such things. But what's sad is that will these people be raised in the history of cricket? Because this year we were celebrating 25 years of Cricket South Africa. Will they be in the books come 50 years or 100 years? We don't know. It's sad. But we've just seen a great story of Mohammed Amir now with the Pakistan side, having been banned, coming back, helping the team to #1 test ranked side. But it's disappointing.
We're certainly hoping that we can get Alvira Peterson to come in to just give us his side of the story, to see what actually is going on and actually what really did happen. Now, the South African cricket team is another day closer to a famous Test series victory over Australia in Australia. The Proteas ended day 3 of the second Test match in Hobart in firm control, having restricted the Aussies to 121 for 2 in their second innings. Still 120 runs behind South Africa's first innings total of 326. Sam Murray reports.
The weather was marginally better on day 3 in the Tasmanian capital, following the complete washout on Sunday. Intermittent showers caused a couple of interruptions, but there was enough time for the Proteas to put themselves firmly in the driving seat. Resuming their first innings on 171 for 5, Quinton de Kock and Themba Bavuma continued their dominance over the Aussie bowling attack. The pair shared 144 runs, 6th wicket stand, with the calm and collected Bavuma notching up his 4th Test half-century.
For the second, which will take him to 50 for the 5th time in international cricket, the 2nd time on this tour.
The prolific de Kock, however, was the mainstay of the Proteas' innings, scoring his 2nd Test century. It was his 5th consecutive innings in which he scored a half-century or more, joining only 4 other South African batsmen who have managed that feat, including the likes of Jacques Kallis and teammate Hashim Amla.
Appreciated by his teammates.
Seamer Josh Hazelwood's second 6-wicket haul ensured that South Africa were bowled out for 326 shortly after lunch, but with a healthy lead of 241 runs. Fast bowler Kyle Abbott, who replaced the injured Dale Steyn, struck in the first over of the Aussie innings, removing opener Joe Burns for a duck. David Warner and Usman Khawaja led the recovery with a 79-run second-wicket partnership before Warner was dismissed in somewhat of an unfortunate manner, again at the hands of Abbott. The hosts were still 120 runs shy of South Africa's first innings total when bad light brought a premature end to the day's play. The hosts finished on 121 for the loss of 2 wickets, with Khawaja well set on 56 and Australian captain Steve Smith unbeaten on 18. Samantha Mari, SABC News.
And that brings up the end of Newsroom for today. Time has just hit 13 minutes to 12 o'clock. Continental weather is up next, and I'll be back shortly to bring you a midday report, but the rest of the team is back with you tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. sharp. Until then,
A presumed U.S. drone strike in the south of the country has killed